Recap, where I sit down with my good friend 30 and So Gaming and recap the gaming news of the week. And there was a lot that happened this week. The Game of the Year discussion is heating up, centered around Baldur's Gate 3, now at the highest Metacritic score of the year, a 97, and it is still impending its launch on PS5, with Xbox likely landing sometime in 2024. That debate just continues to swirl between the two console teams. Modern Warfare 3 announced its release date. There's worry and criticism there about it just being DLC repackaged as a new game. There was a Starfield commercial. Redfall still hasn't received an update, and Avowed dropped co-op. So we're going to be talking about all this stuff. I'm going to end the previous stream. We covered Lords of the Fallen. The previews are coming in, and they look really good and really strong. So that turned into a bit of a Game of the Year discussion as well. If you're watching the past broadcast or you're here live right now, hit that like button. It helps out the video. And check out my man 30 and So Gaming. You just can look up his channel as 30 NSG, or his name will be clickable in the description below. So you can scroll down in the description, just look for his name and click on it and show his channel some love. We appreciate you guys so much. So Mike, I want to start with Game of the Year, because this is just what a year we are having, and it is not over yet. We've just kind of crested over the halfway mark, and there's still big things coming. First, let's just talk Baldur's Gate 3, because this seems so crazy that a CRPG, a computer RPG, some people use CRPG to refer to like a classic RPG, like old school RPG, a Dungeons and Dragons, a D&D dice rolling classic RPG hit over 800,000 concurrent players on Steam. The CEO told the IT department to expect around 100,000 concurrent. Highest Metacritic score of the year. This thing, in my opinion, is kind of kicked Zelda off the podium. This thing's taken Game of the Year. Let's just talk Baldur's Gate first before we get into the discussion about what's going to be up there for Game of the Year. What was your take on this situation with that game?
I didn't think Baldur's Gate. I think Baldur's Gate was going to be in the conversation like of Game of the Year, but I didn't think it was going to. In my eyes, it's also going to win Game of the Year. But it's definitely in the nomination. It kicked a game out, right? Like, people weren't expecting this game to be such a big deal, especially stirring up the conversation with devs going, don't expect this from us. You know what I mean? Like, because this game is doing good, don't expect anything from us like that. And it's like, that's how things work. Like, the bar raises and then you have to surpass that, right? I think it's wonderful. The game, I don't know how much time you've put into it or any time at all. I've put about 8.5 hours into it, and it's lovely, man. I mean, I'm absolutely loving every minute of it. Even brutally getting beaten over and over in a battle, because I've never played a Baldur's Gate before, but I love driven story, and there is so much story and lore that you can play with this game and really dive into the character that you customize yourself. And it's phenomenal, and I'm really happy that not only just a game like this is out and people can see it, because there's more people playing video games now than ever before. So it's nice that a game like this can be seen and kind of show what we can expect, or what we should expect from video games, from developers, instead of this microtransaction, DLC, incomplete, unfinished type of games. This is a game, and it's absolutely awesome to see.
I like that discussion. I want to hang out on that for just a minute, because the idea that, we should always expect more, always be raising the bar. I do worry that a game like this is in a unique situation and unique sort of privileged position to run. They ran early access for a while, really teamed up with the community and poured a lot of passion and love into this. I don't know if every developer is in the position to do that to the degree that they did. I don't mean that. I don't think I mean that like we can expect less from others, but this is in a category of excellence that I do think is a little unfair to be like, oh yeah, man, every developer out there should be able to do this. I think expecting a good game is fine. Expecting award-winning 97 excellence every time is probably unreasonable.
No, but when they say that don't expect us to like give you this in our RPG, it's like, for instance, let me go into the first-person shooter space, right? Like first-person shooters, they used to just be first-person, but now certain games do first-person, third-person, right? You can swap, or they do left shoulder, switch to right shoulder. They've added that to not most games, but a lot more games now are doing it, right? So like the bar is set for certain aspects. Like if it's a looter, you want loadouts. And then when a game that's a looter comes out and doesn't have loadouts, you know who I'm looking at, right? And then all of a sudden there's games that come out and also they don't have, they have like targeted loot, but then the next looter comes out and it doesn't have targeted loot. It's like, this is the standard now, right? And this is what the players now will expect from a looter or a first-person shooter or an RPG, whatever that standard is. If it's customization of character customization, if it's storytelling, if it's the menu system, the UI, or the whole package, right? For a developer to come out and say, well, you can't expect this from us, is basically telling me, then, okay, then I won't buy your game because you don't really care, right? You're just trying to just put out a product, and that's fine. But then there's these people that are also putting out a product that are trying to hit like these strides and push the industry forward. And I'm not talking about leaps and bounds graphical wise or anything like that. Just the big picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, I wonder if when they said that, the idea was not every RPG can be this crazy good. Almost like I'm looking at Lords of the Fallen today, right? Kind of an open world creative take on a Souls-like game. And for a Souls-like game dev right now working on an open world game to say, listen, you can't expect Elden Ring from every open world Souls game. I think I would hear that as like, oh, I think that's fair. I don't think you're trying to say we're going to be lazy, or, don't expect that from us. But I hear where you're coming from, because I'm looking at Diablo 4 and I'm saying, there are games like Last Epoch, there are games like Path of Exile that really improved on the dungeon crawler ARPG, and Diablo, and Diablo 4 gleaned nothing from that. And, I would say Destiny 2 was guilty of that many times. Like, you won't even put some of the most basic looter-shooter systems in your game. Like, just loadouts, for Pete's sakes, was always kind of a big question mark for me. And I think there's two sides to the coin. There is a side of the coin that says a game like Baldur's Gate 3 can raise the bar and say, at least try to do some of these newer, better things. But we also have to say, not everybody's tall enough to jump over the bar as cleanly as they have.
Sure. Yeah, but at the same time, you can't defend companies like Blizzard or EA, where just because Baldur's Gate had 2 years of early access, basically we had 2 years of early access of Battlefield 2042. That didn't come out launched correctly, right? You had to wait 18 months for that to be fixed to what it is today.
Right.
Diablo, they had early access alpha testers, beta testers, and now it came out and they're still wondering what's going on, and they're making big, huge swapping changes inside the game. So what's the difference if the game launches and it's gold and you're paying $70, or if it's early access and you paid, a cheaper price point to get into to that game to help the developers? It's the same.
I'm going to push back a teeny bit, because I was just getting ready to say, are we about to enter the era of early access? I wouldn't say that games that had betas or tech tests are the same as this. Like, early access games in Steam are a different animal. It's basically a game that soft launched. I don't even know, what, a year ago? When did this start in early access? Let's just say it was a year ago. That is an insane amount of information and data collecting that you get to do over time that you don't really get from like a tech test or a beta, like a weekend server slam,
Here's my problem with the industry now, right? It used to take 2 to 3 years to make a video game, and then live service games came in about, 10 years ago now. And now games take 3 to 5 years to make, but they release them at 2. Okay, they release them at 2 and then fix them for the next 3 years, right? Because they're like, well, we're not going to work on a game for 5 years and then launch it. We're going to work on a game for 2 years and then launch it, get early access, get alpha, get beta. If it's fully released, we're going to get microtransactions in there. We're going to do game service type of games. And they don't actually work on it. I mean, Sea of Thieves came out when it first came out. I played it for 2 years before it even launched, right? I was in the early access of Sea of Thieves. When it came out, I was like, there's no way they're launching this thing. And they launched it at a very lackluster opening of the game. And then for the next 4 years, they made a better game, right? So there's that game. Then there's Anthem. Then there's Battlefront. Then there's Fallout 76. Then there's Destiny. Then there's Division. There's all of these live service games that they push them out as early as possible and then work on them for that extra 2-3 years to make it where it is.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that the industry does need its butt kicked a little bit. Like, hey, shape up. Look what these guys did. I definitely agree with that. I'm looking squarely at Jedi Survivor. Like, shape up. This is unacceptable. Like, these guys launched greatness. You have massive amounts of money and bandwidth and studio power. Stuff like Jedi Survivor should not be happening, okay? Especially in a year that we're currently in. This year is...
Right.
I think we are right now hitting a giant leap up for gaming. This is going to be a year we look back on, I think, and say that was the turning point. We got out of the shadow of the sickie and all the delays and the working from home crap that happened that hurt games, and we're going to get to walk into a better era of gaming. And it's going to be timed well as we sort of, crest over the hill and get into the second half of this generation of console as well. You'll see a lot of the first party games start to land better and do more and have some neat stuff. But I do think when you look at a game like Baldur's Gate 3, we always need to look at games in their context. And that's why I don't think every game could benefit from early access. But I certainly think the longer tail you want your game to have, whether it's live service or just like a very, very long RPG, I bet we start to see more companies embrace the idea of, well, we can do early access. The question is, will that happen on consoles? This is a great ecosystem of early access on Steam, but consoles aren't really known for this, and PlayStation's really wanting to dig in on live service. Maybe they should take some notes and say, look, man, live service is a great way to get a game like that to run, to launch in an excellent state.
Well, look at Obsidian with Grounded, right? They did the preview program on Xbox, and they took the community and let them play the game for I think it was almost 2 years, and then they just launched this past year as the complete launch of Grounded, right? So we are seeing that on console where games are coming out, but they're not done. They're in that working state. I mean, hell, even Epic did it with Fortnite, right?
Yeah.
Fortnite was in beta for multiple years, and it made billions and trillions of dollars for them. So,
yeah, I'll be interested to see if we start to see that kind of infect if the early access has an impact on what we see on PlayStation. I mean, I love trials. I think that's one of the best things that's starting to show up again, is being able to demo a game, try out a game. I saw a game that it's an indie title from Devolver called Carrion, and I can play it on my PlayStation Plus Premium. I can play it as a trial, but it's only a $20 game. And I was under the impression like games have to be $40 or higher to be on a trial on PlayStation. I think it's that they require you to put a game that's of a certain price. It has to be like on a trial within at least 90 days of launch. So like this little indie game, I can try it out on my PlayStation. I'm like, I love that. I love seeing the consumer given more of an insight and a look at a game before it launches, because I have continued to say Steam needs to impact the console world. We are not protected in the console world as consumers. I can't refund anything with ease. I know you can get like one refund every 6 months. Buddy, if I play a game on Steam and I think it sucks or it's glitchy or it's buggy, I get my money back. That doesn't happen on console. You can buy a game like Redfall, which we're gonna touch on that. That's one of the topics today. Wow, Alex, that's a big one. Alex Witter, thank you for the gifteds. So we're not necessarily protected enough. So I continue to hope that we see that impact on the console world, that we can get refunds, we can get trials, maybe even start to see the early access meta, creep over into the console realm so that we get better games.
I mean, I would prefer if developers were upfront with us, right? Like when you go to Costco or something, there's like these free samples you get, right? They're trying to promote the product, and you try it and you go, oh, that's pretty good, and you grab the bag and you're like, I'm going to take it home, right? Same thing with a video game or anything else. A small sampling, that's what a trailer is for a movie, right? And trailer, you're like, you look at the movie, you're like, that looks pretty good. Maybe I'm going to go watch the movie. Now with a video game, if you could just touch it for just, I don't know, 20 minutes or whatever, and you test out that game, you're like, oh man, I like that game. I like the whatever it is. If it was the gameplay, the control scheme, the audio, whatever it is. Like, I think what Tunic did, I thought was beautiful because it gave just enough of the game to try it, and then people were sold on it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, on the topic of quality, though, and under the heading here, Baldur's Gate 3 has, I think, thrown down the gauntlet, and in my opinion, and in my estimation, covering the gaming industry as long as I have, it has locked up Game of the Year. I don't think anything is going to come close now. And I'm actually happy about that. As a huge Zelda fan, I was going to be kind of bummed if Tears of the Kingdom ran away with it again. It's like, come on. It was Breath of the Wild 2. I love what they did. It was innovative. I had a blast with it. It's a 9 out of 10 game. I really hope I can play it on the Switch 2 and get 60 frames per second because I just, that's a huge barrier for me. But I was kind of inwardly sort of like, really? Zelda again? And then Baldur's Gate 3 walks out and says, just sit the frick down, Zelda. Like, we're going to get a 97 on Metacritic. Okay. Yeah. In that conversation, though, it's still a really big deal to get nominated this year of all years. Like, if you get into the nomination for Game of the Year, this is a tough year. Okay. There will only be 6 nominations if there is a tie. I think there will be a tie. So I imagine we're going to have 6. What are your just must games that are going to be up there? Undeniably, you're like, these games are going to be up there. These are my 6. What do you think's landing?
I'm running a poll right now on our Discord, and I have it's just not who do we think is going to win. Who do we think is going to be the 6 nominations? I put 16 games up there, and the leaders right now, and I actually agree with these. These are the 6 that I would pick as well. Okay, is Hogwarts is definitely in the running for me. Right, we got Final Fantasy 16. We got Baldur's Gate 3. We got Spider-Man 2. We got Legends of Zelda, and we have Starfield. Right now, right at the end, people are thinking Armored Core 6. Right, people are thinking Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I don't know about that. Even people are talking about Street Fighter 6 as being in the running for Game of the Year. Now, I think that'll be a contender, obviously, for fighting game next to Mortal Kombat. But sure, I think it's such a good problem to have this many games that are good in one year. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Because to me, it doesn't matter who wins. To me, it's about the nominations. If you get that 6 nominations into the thing, that's a huge, huge win because there's so many good games, and one of them is going to get... Like Hi-Fi Rush, I thought was a fantastic game. I don't think that's going to make it, even though it might be that indie game that, like a Stray type of thing that makes it in. Oh, yeah. Or even the game Dredge, which was an independent, like you're like a fisherman, like a boat. It's a phenomenal, like another RPG type of game. That obviously will be in the indie section, but it might push in. I don't know what the industry wants. There's no standards of graphics or story or anything. It's like who the insiders think is the best in their head. So, well, I'm just gonna side rant a little bit and side tangent and say that I hope Jedi Survivor doesn't get a single nomination because I would like Disney to be embarrassed for what they did to that game because they're the reason that it launched. They wanted a new Star Wars game every 6 months. Every 6 months. Yep. And they completely mistreated that product. That thing needed at least another 6 to 9 months. And I would like them to be literally on a grand stage like, no, you didn't get a single nomination because your game was in such a bad state. Now, sadly, it got such good treatment by the press that, and the distance between people are going to forget. They'll be like, oh, it was a great game. It was a great story. So sadly, I don't think I'm going to get my wish. I think Jedi Survivor is going to get some nominations. I don't see it getting Game of the Year. There's too many good games for that game to get up there. Yeah. There is a debate about Resident Evil 4 Remake that's swirling. People think it should be up there, and I'm like, in this year, no way. In a previous year, sure, but this year, absolutely not. You can't put a remake up there. Right. If you get rid of like Final Fantasy, Spider-Man didn't come out this year, and I don't know, Hogwarts didn't come out this year, then yeah, Resident Evil would be in the talk, right? But because those games are in the same year, that's just the way it is, right? Yeah. Well, people want to blame Respawn. People want to blame Disney. No, I fault Disney because
I'm telling you right now, there's no way that team and that director wanted to do that with that game. I believe it was Disney's push to get that game out when it came out, and everything we're hearing about how Disney treats their actors, their writers, their crews, like they're having record profit loss. Yeah, well, good. Hopefully they get chopped off and sold to companies that can treat their people right, and maybe we can continue to get good Star Wars. Get it out of the clutches of that company, and I'd like to see even the Star Wars property for video games not belong to them anymore, because I hated seeing such a great story and such a great character. It's sitting uninstalled on my PS5. It's like I can't play it. It runs so poorly, hitching and screen tearing. So as far as the games that do deserve to be up there, I do think we're going to have some surprises, okay? I think undeniably you will see Baldur's Gate 3 and Tears of the Kingdom leading the pack. The other 4 slots are a knockdown drag-out fight, because people are assuming that like Starfield will automatically be up there because Bethesda is almost always getting nominated for awards when they do big games like this. Let's ignore Fallout 76. If you ignore Fallout 76, they got a great track record, okay? Now, these were the DICE Awards. That was before Keighley's event. Before Keighley's event, you got a lot of Bethesda up there. I mean, people were trying to clip snipe me because I couldn't remember if Fallout had ever won any awards. And it's like, I wasn't covering games back then, bro. Like, if you look at the Game Awards now with Keighley, that's kind of the center stage event. But if you go back to the DICE events, Bethesda did just fine. So Starfield feels like a shoe-in for many people. But then it gets a little bit harder to predict. Because Armored Core, you got that FromSoft. Everybody loves FromSoft after Elden Ring. Hogwarts. Everybody keeps forgetting about Hogwarts. That game is rivaling...
That was my front runner.
Right.
That was my front runner. Yeah.
It's rivaling Zelda for sales. Zelda hit like 18 million out of 120 million Switches. That's like 1 in every 6 people that own a Nintendo Switch bought Zelda, which is bonkers. Yep. And Hogwarts is up there with it. So it's like it's so weird for Hogwarts to not be up there, at least in the running. Now, I think Hogwarts could win some awards. I kept saying Hogwarts could get art direction, but then I keep playing Final Fantasy 16 and I'm like, oh gosh, like the fights, the characters, the art style of that game is just phenomenal. I could see Final Fantasy 16 being up there for Game of the Year.
Yeah, when I look at art stuff, I always think of, because Final Fantasy is not based on anything. It's their own IP, right? Like they created when you look at Hogwarts, yeah, it's a fantasy world, but it's also based on the book, which is also in a movie. And then they made a game that had to connect that two kind of realms together. And that to me is a much harder feat to do, because you have to be accurate. You have to make it look like it's what you thought about in the books and what you saw in the movies, right? So when art direction and stuff like that happens, I feel like that's a sure win for like a Hogwarts. Now, for Game of the Year, a lot of people think that Hogwarts is not going to get in because of the controversy that happened with J.K. Rowling and stuff like that. And I was like, if they rank it on that, then just shut off the video game awards, because that means you're not justifying what that game has done for the industry. Like they did like any game that has an IP for a movie now, I want it to be like Hogwarts, man. Like I want it to be as much tender loving care as they did with that game. And I'm not even a Harry Potter fan. Yeah. And I absolutely loved that game.
Yeah, well, and they included Hogwarts in the Game Awards concert that they did, so I do not think Keighley or the press is going to give a rip about that. They all gave it reviews, they all covered it, everybody cashed in on the clicks. A couple of them tried to talk about the controversy like at the end of their blogs, and it's like, just shut up. You just made a bunch of ad revenue covering this. Just be quiet. Yeah. Like, take your virtue and stuff it in a sack, right? So I don't think Hogwarts gets a nom. I don't, for Game of the Year.
Makes the top 6.
No.
You don't think it makes in the 6? Oh, man.
No. The race is too tight. I think Hogwarts gets edged out, because I honestly think Hogwarts gets edged out by Spider-Man, because Spider-Man 2, I think, would be the other title people are going to look at and say, existing IP, look at what they did with Venom, look at what they did with the voice acting and the story and the character design. I think Spider-Man 2, sadly, is going to kick Hogwarts right off the podium. If there was no Spider-Man 2, I feel like Hogwarts would sneak in, because it's like, look at what they did with, like you're saying, with an existing piece of property. Look at what went into designing the school and the castle. It's just remarkable. But Spidey stands really tall. And
see, I think they both make it. I think a Final Fantasy gets kicked out more than before Hogwarts does.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. I
This
mean,
is
it's
what's great though. This is what's great about it, right? Everyone has their own like horses in the race, like who they want to see make it the top 6. All the games deserve to be there, but only 6 can make it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. And I've continued to tell people that I think Lords of the Fallen is going to surprise folks. It's going to kind of come out of left field and be like, surprise, mother, and it's going to be up there with everybody else because this game's looking very promising. Unreal 5 glowing previews just hit yesterday. I mean, it's potentially, I asked people, I was like, do you think it's under the shadow of Elden Ring? And people thought no. Elden Ring set up more of a runway for a game like this to be sort of beloved and accepted and embraced prior to previous years where you wouldn't think that about a Souls game. I know Sekiro won, but prior to now, I don't think we would be considering a game like Lords of the Fallen being up there, but Elden Ring may have laid that groundwork. And as you say, it's so hard to pick 6 because there's just been so many insanely good games, and the fact that we're still in the dark on like, well, how good Starfield, how good Spider-Man, how good is Armored Core,
right?
You know, and you and I both forgot the king himself hasn't walked out yet. Mario Wonder is launching this year.
Yeah, I have it on the list. But again, no one knows yet because we haven't seen it yet, right? So nobody knows how good or whatever. It's going to be mediocre, but it's Nintendo, right? It's going to be big. But on the list that we have here, I'll tell you what's on our list, right? We have 16 games, and the 16 games that we have, I was surprised how close they are. I have a very small community, but what they're all looking at, and it's like right on. And I really think we're predicting what the 6 are. Let me get this up real fast. It is. We have, sorry to put a little hold. We have Hogwarts, we have Star Wars Jedi Survivor, we have Hi-Fi Rush, we have Final Fantasy 16, we have Diablo 4, Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, Street Fighter 6, Dead Space Remake, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Dredge. We have Legend of Zelda, Starfield, Armored Core 6, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, and Mortal Kombat 1. That's the list that we have of 16. There's still Alan Wake 2 that's coming out, right? There's still the Super Mario game. It's on my list, but it's not out yet. There's other little games that could make the list. This is a good problem to have for this year of gaming.
Oh yeah, I mean the family game category is just going to be so fun because there's the Sonic Superstars game, you know, Super Mario RPG Remake might be landing this year, Super Mario Wonder. I mean, going back to classic side scroller Mario, but having that charm and like multiplayer, it's just. I'm telling you, this is the year we're going to look back and be like, that's the year gaming turned the corner. We're about to go into the golden age of gaming. Everybody talking about how gaming's bad, gaming sucks, everything's terrible. And it's like, I don't know what you're doing or what you're playing. I can't find the time to play. My backlog just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I will be happy, I think, no matter what. This will be one of those years where no matter what wins the big title of Game of the Year, no matter what wins each individual category, I'll probably be rooting in certain categories for certain games because I do think there are some games that have just stood really tall and likely will stand very tall. But I don't think you can walk away this year at all and be upset. It was like when Elden Ring beat God of War Ragnarok. I was rooting for Ragnarok, but I was like, hey man, Elden Ring was incredibly special and I'm totally fine with it winning Game of the Year. Right now, if you had to put money on the table, what's your prediction for Game of the Year?
I gotta go with Baldur's Gate.
Yeah,
Baldur's Gate 3 is again. I didn't play Final Fantasy 16. I haven't played Spider-Man 2 yet, but man, I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that is a game that comes out once a decade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that people keep forgetting is. Typically when a game wins, there's something almost intangibly tectonic about it. It's like you don't even really understand. Like you can describe the things that Elden Ring did well, but it captivated people. It pulled people in that had never played a Souls game before. Baldur's Gate 3 is doing that for CRPGs. Like I told people, man, I do not like turn-based. The last turn-based game I liked was Child of Light, and before that it was like Super Mario RPG. And then this game has me thinking, man, some couch co-op with my wife could be really fun. We can kind of take it at our own pace, you know, get in arguments about what we should do in the different scenarios and the different situations. You know, it could be a really, really fun romp through that game. Now, it might be too maybe a little bit too challenging or too frustrating at times, but I've had people tell me, they're like, you can play this game pretty casually and still have a really good time.
My favorite game of all time, just because I love story and I liked RPG, is Mass Effect 2, right? And I'm only 8.5 hours into Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm already feeling the way that Mass Effect did. And I think I'm a more sci-fi guy than I am a fantasy guy. But what Baldur's Gate 3 is doing so far, and again, once I'm farther in the game and I complete the game, it might be my favorite game of all time. As far as it might overtake that Mass Effect 2 spot for me.
Well, we'll have to see. And as far as big games go this year, we've got so much left. And the one thing that was announced that had me, honestly, especially this year, just sort of yawning, was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. And I know I don't know how much you follow Call of Duty or play Call of Duty. I mean, a lot of us played it.
I watch it. Yeah.
Okay, you watch it. Well, the main contention and concern here is this was originally leaked and talked about and discussed as being DLC for Modern Warfare 2. And now it's being booked as Modern Warfare 3. And many are worried, like, this is just going to be DLC. As we're reading what it's going to bring to Modern Warfare 2, it sounds sort of like a big patch and a big update, but it's being billed as a whole new game. From the outside looking in, what does this game have to deliver to bill itself as a full game and charge full price? Because we're hearing about maps and modes and updates, and you can bring all your guns with you, you can bring all your stuff with you. So it just doesn't really sound like a traditional COD sequel.
No, I stopped playing. I haven't bought a Call of Duty since Modern Warfare 2 back in 2009, right? Back then, I said, before I even streamed and everything, I would talk to my friends and say, Call of Duty is the Madden football of first-person shooters. And now with Modern Warfare 3 coming out, it's literally, that's exactly what it is. It almost feels like a roster update. You know what I mean? It's like you're just moving your guns over. And me and Sarge were talking yesterday about it, and he actually brought up a good point. He says, well, if I have all the guns leveled up right now, right? I've played Modern Warfare 2, and let's say I have all the guns leveled up, and I put all my time in that. Now Modern Warfare 3 comes out. Why am I paying the $70 price tag when I have less of a game because I've already, all the guns that I'm getting, unless they put like 10 new guns, 15 new guns, 20 new guns in there for me to get and to level up. If I pay $70, I'm getting less of a product than someone that's never played Call of Duty before and then gets the game for $70 and then levels up all the guns. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, you put your time in, and I do love the fact that they are bringing that over. I think it's a nice feature. Right? It's a new bar, new standard. Like you're moving it over, but at the same time, it's like, what's the benefits of it? Because it's like, now I don't have to get the Modern Warfare 2, but I think they want you to get Modern Warfare 2 because there's certain guns and certain things that you could only get, like, what do they call their observers? Is that what they call them? No. Is that right, Chad? Operators. They have operators in, like, Modern Warfare 2 that you can only unlock in the seasons and whatnot, right? So now you're playing Modern Warfare 3, and you happen to have a skin that you can only get from the Modern Warfare 2. So I think maybe they want people to go back and then get the cheaper version of Modern Warfare 2, and then if you like that skin, you'll go either earn it or buy it. I don't know what they're doing. It's interesting to see what Activision is doing with the Call of Duty title right now.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I literally ran with the headline. It was like, I just don't care. Now, the funny thing was, I had all of these console tribalists immediately jump on my tweet, thumbnail, and stream. They didn't watch it. It takes me, I think, 31 seconds in my stream to say why I don't care, and it's because of how badly Modern Warfare 2 was handled, all my issues and frustrations with it at the time. I was critical of it. I covered it, and I walked away from it because of how they handled it. All of this predates the Activision Blizzard stuff. Like, that wasn't even really a debate point back then. We knew they were trying to buy Activision Blizzard, but we hadn't really gotten into the hearings and the coverage. And so all these guys jump on my tweet and my stream just responding to the thumbnail. They're like, oh, you don't care because Xbox is going to own it. I'm like, no, man. Like, console warring is rotting your brain. Like, you got a company that's basically selling you DLC as a full game. What was planned as DLC, it's Sledgehammer. It's not even Infinity Ward. You don't know how long they've been working on it. There was an email in April of last year where they said no more annual release. Well, That was a year ago. How much do you think they actually did to warrant a full-priced game at this point? And you're willing to defend that because, oh, it's going to be owned by Xbox in a year or so. Like, you're the one that's being the bias-laden tribalist. I'm basing it off of the quality I got from the last game. I dove into MW2. Campaign was good, but then I played through it a second time. It was so glitchy. It was so bug-riddled. It ruined my experience. Skill-based matchmaking made PvP impossible because I get a 1 KD and I guess I'm a god, so they treat me like one, which is just frustrating. Spec Ops launched and wasn't ready. We thought, oh, Call of Duty's going to delve into PvE. This is going to be awesome, right? Because I felt like the shooting and the guns felt great. Mm-hmm. Spec Ops, we were going to grind it, and then we're going to do raids, right? Spec Ops wasn't ready. It didn't track like it was supposed to, and then the raids got like lackluster reaction, response, and criticism. So when it comes to Call of Duty, what would bring you back? Because I did like the story. I thought the voice acting and the characters and the writing was fantastic. But I'm sitting here thinking this seems like a total scam, man.
Nothing would bring me back. I'm never buying another Call of Duty game. They lost me 13 years ago, 14 years ago, in 2009. That was the last time I played it. I played Warzone. I tried Warzone 2, or the new one that came out with the DZ and stuff. I like it. It's not for me, though. I just don't care about the story anymore, especially since they're just regurgitating the same stuff over again, right? They're even naming them the same. I understand there's a new story and whatnot, but I'm just not interested in Call of Duty whatsoever. And I'm losing complete interest in Battlefront, and that was my go-to fighting game to go to.
Yeah. I want to respond to something in chat because this happens all the time when we talk about games not running well. Sean Murray says, I'm sorry, but Jedi Survivor plays just fine on the Series X. Maybe it's an issue with the PS5. That claim can be proven false because all of the tech breakdowns and the problems are documented, and people on the Series X have uploaded clips. They've shown the problems. They're the same problems happening on the PS5. They're the same problems happening on PC. Your Series X isn't special. It's experiencing the same hitching and stuttering. You're probably playing it on quality mode, and don't take offense to this. You're probably playing on quality mode on an old TV, and you can't see it, right? You're used to playing at like lower performance levels. If you're playing on performance mode on a really nice TV or monitor, all of the problems are so clearly visible. So the idea that people keep doing that with Jedi Survivor, they're like, well, I'm not having any problems on my Series X. You don't have a special box, bro. There's been so much documented about the problems with that game. It runs terribly everywhere. So I get so tired of hearing that. I'm happy to literally change the subject to correct that because I'm absolutely sick of hearing that. It's that game launched in a terrible state everywhere, okay? So, Series X ain't special. On the subject of Modern Warfare 3, many people are making speculations about this PlayStation contract playing a role here. I don't think there's any smoke or fire here, but the PlayStation contract runs until the end of fiscal year, which means, according to VG charts,
this year or 2024?
It's the end of fiscal. What is it? VG charts had the article. Basically, what it means is they only get one more marketing contract deal, and that is the end of this year. Once you get out of 2023, there's no more for them. So Sony's Call of Duty deal ends in 2024, but it only includes up to Call of Duty 2023. That's according to VG charts. So a lot of people are looking at this and saying, well, this is it. This is how they're gonna honor the contract in this way, or they have to do this. Or I have my own theories. Like they're intentionally going to be like, well, yeah, let's change the DLC into an annual release. Sony now has to market a bad game. They have to market a bad game because they're a part of the marketing contract. This is their last hurrah.
Right. It just says, someone asked earlier, or said earlier, that they're all new guns and camos in the game. But my point is, if it's $70, right? If let's say they're putting 20 new guns in the game, okay, great. But if they didn't just put the 20 new guns in the game and they just ended the last game and none of those guns came over, then you would have 45 guns in the game. You know what I mean? And then you would have the single player story and you would have 45 guns and camos to unlock and do. But now, because the other game is moving over to this game. And if you already played the other game and you already have majority of the camos and you already have majority of the guns and they're all already leveled up, then you're only getting 15 guns in the new game. And yeah, you're getting a story, but it's not worth the $70 price tag. You see what I'm saying?
Right. And that I am actually curious about the price tag. Because they're calling it a full premium release, but it's like, well, okay, are they going to charge 50 or 60 for it and kind of admit like this isn't, or are they going to say, well, the optics on that's bad, we got to charge 70 because if it's a full premium release, 50 or 60 bucks, everybody's going to assume that it's crap. Well, I think it'd probably be better to do that than to charge 70 for DLC, for crying out loud, because I wanted DLC for this game. I loved Alejandro. I loved Valeria. I thought they were great characters. I paid her a compliment on Twitter. I couldn't find him on Twitter, but they're phenomenal. And I was like, oh, dude, I'd love more story with this. But then I see this and I feel torn. I'm like, I don't want to support this. This doesn't seem like a good practice. This doesn't seem like a good idea.
That's a good consumer. Like, you don't want to support it, so you just don't support it, right? If you don't want to see stuff like this again, because if this is successful, this is the new format. You know what I'm saying? If the Modern Warfare 3 comes out and it's successful, this is what they'll go forward with.
And I'm so torn. It's so hard to put my money where my mouth is because the MW2 campaign, I did really enjoy it. I'm like, I kind of want to play this new thing. They got Makarov coming back and the Russian storylines coming back. Like, oh my gosh, like this is, they're totally cheating because they're pulling at my heartstrings as a COD player. It's like I've been playing COD since the very first game landed on PC, and you're going to make it really hard for me to say no. No, I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to endorse this or support this. Now, if they can outline substantively what I'm getting and I say, okay, this is actually bigger than we expected, then sure. But as it looks right now, it's like, y'all are doing an update. This is a patch. You're going to throw in the campaign.
And if they are charging $40, then that's a completely different story. But if they're charging full price, that's bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think that sets a really, really bad precedent. And somebody want to help out the guy in chat asking how to become a member. Give him some instructions. I want to move on because the next couple of subjects are going to take up some time here. So I didn't want to lead with this because I thought let's save this. Let's slap this in the middle. So if you made it this far, the latest Starfield commercial, a lot of people use this to slam Xbox. I took a completely different tact. I said this is another piece of the evolution of that of Xbox as a brand, okay? Of the Xbox brand. And now I want to include more of chat. So chat, weigh in on this. You can type in chat, Discord, Super Chat, all that stuff. I didn't do as much chat engagement up to now, but I want to do a little bit more with the Starfield situation because this is a bit more of a debate. So the Samsung television ad shows Starfield and it ends the commercial. It says no console required. And I'm immediately thinking this is very different than what we originally were looking at. We're looking at Todd Howard saying he feels pressure to move consoles with this game. People see this as the game to save Xbox. And then Xbox is out here saying our biggest and best game coming in a very long time because they haven't had very many bangers this gen. Like, if you ignore Forza, it's very, very meager. You can only play Hi-Fi Rush so many times, right? So this is their biggest game. This is their time to turn the page, turn the corner. And Xbox walks out and is like, you don't need a console to play this. And I said, I'm not going to slam them. This isn't a negative thing. Many people like this idea. And we saw at Gamescom 2022, they showed off a Samsung television playing Flight Sim. We thought, okay, I said, this is where Xbox is going. You've said it. I've said it. Many of us have said this for years. There's a change coming. And I felt like this TV commercial was just very strong evidence in the evolution of Xbox as a brand. It's good or bad depending on who you are. Where did you land on this commercial?
So 5 years ago, at least this is the earliest I found. I could go back even further because I do a podcast on Thursday nights, right? And GXG, it was like episode 175, I think. I went back and looked at it because I was like, I've been talking about what Microsoft's been doing. So real quick, for your fans in the chat that love me, you know who you are, right? let me put my Microsoft suit on for you, okay? And let me talk Microsoft, because you think I love Microsoft. No, I hate the foundation of what Game Pass is. I think it's terrible for the business, but I speak facts of what the actual Game Pass is doing, what Microsoft is doing. I said 5+ years ago that Microsoft wasn't caring about consoles. They didn't care. The Xbox One S, when it came out, was at the tail end in 2019. It was like the last thing right before the next console came out, which was the Series, right? The Series S and the Series X. They launched a discless Xbox One S, right? Just at the last tail end of the thing. And Phil Spencer said, yeah, we have multiple consoles coming out. And that one came out. And then just a year later is when the Series S dropped. And then the Xbox Series X dropped, right? And then there's also that Keystone that they were talking about, which was just cloud gaming, right? Because it was just going to be a small box. They couldn't get the price down far enough. So they just put it on the shelf, literally on his shelf behind him. Okay. So this is the game plan for the entire time. So when I saw this commercial, I've been saying all the time, I said they're going to put a little dongle on the back of every television set, but now they just built it into the television. And they're not the first to do it, because PlayStation did it back in like 2014, 2015, where they could stream PlayStation 4 games to the television, but it was ahead of its time and didn't work. Look at Google Stadia. Google Stadia worked fantastic. It was a business model that suffered because you had to buy all the games over again. Well, PlayStation and Microsoft have all of the games, right? Third party, first party, all one-stop shop inside their PlayStation Pluses and Xbox Microsoft store, okay? So now the television comes out and you don't even need a console, right? All these people that love to give me hate about, oh, this is a shill, he just talks and loves Microsoft. I've just been saying that they don't need consoles. They don't care if you buy an S. They don't care if you buy an X. They don't care where you play it. They just want to play it. It's like the lesser of two evils. If Sony bought Call of Duty, they would just make it for Sony. If Microsoft buys the thing, they're trying to make it for everyone. Sure, they're making Starfield exclusive, but it's not exclusive to just Xbox. It's exclusive for Microsoft, and Microsoft is putting it on phones, they're putting it on PCs, they're putting it on their console, and that's what they're trying to do, right? So this television, now I'm wondering, okay, how's this going to run? Like, how well is this going to run on the Samsung television, right? Does it say in the small fine print that you need like fiber optic cable internet? You know what I mean? Like what kind of speed do you need to make this thing run great on your Samsung?
Yeah, there's a lot here. That was something I highlighted. I said, listen, you could look at this and say, this is great. More people can play Starfield. And if Microsoft can be kind of one of the first to market with this idea of like, you don't need a console to become a part of our ecosystem, many of us looked at Activision Blizzard and said, that's the goal here. There were documents where they talked about having their own storefront. They admitted to primarily wanting King Mobile. And I said, these guys are thinking mobile cloud. They know that's more endemic long-term to the gaming world in the same way that like cell phones have become endemic to daily life. And I'm thinking, they're setting their sights on that. They know that this console gaming thing is a Nintendo PlayStation game that they've lost handedly. So they're just going to kind of bow out of that fight. We're not going to beat these guys on hardware. We're going to go cloud and mobile. Now, the problem I have with this as a gamer is that's not what I bought into this generation. I saw Project Scarlet marketing. I saw Series X marketing. That's what I bought into. And one of the risks they're taking with Starfield as a flagship title is you have no control over the internet infrastructure across the globe, especially in the United States, which I think primarily is where Starfield will be largely played, is in the West. Our infrastructure is a joke in many places, and your game is then viewed through the lens of, Billy's slow internet, or, this guy in an oversold neighborhood, or this guy's on the old copper lines or whatever. You don't have any control over that. And I know people say, well, it warns you if you're experiencing trouble that like it's with your connection. Do you think the consumer cares about that? If they're watching Netflix on the regular or Amazon Prime or Hulu, I watch movies all the time. What's the problem with this stinking game? I think they're taking a risk by jumping this quickly into it, because I don't think cloud gaming is necessarily ready yet. I don't think the infrastructure's caught up. Any amount of latency is going to make this game feel pretty bad, I would imagine.
Yeah, when it comes to the combat and stuff like that, absolutely, right? Like it would definitely, you would definitely tell. Like I play some cloud gaming games, like when I'm at my, I'm on vacation. All I do is bring my not even a laptop. I just bring my iPad and I bring an Xbox controller. And I just hook up Bluetooth and I play in the hotel room or whatever. And for some games, single player games, they're fantastic. You don't even really notice it. But as soon as you do a combat game, it might stutter or stick a little bit, and you're like, oh, it's a little latency happening with the right. And again, it all depends on if you're hooked up, hardwired, if you're in a great Wi-Fi, great internet area. But this is the future, right? We used to have to own VCRs and Blu-ray players, and now you don't need to own any of that. Now it's just all streaming from a cloud, 4K to watch movies. Now, video games is a little different because you're not playing a movie, right? You're not having control of the characters on the screen. You're just streaming a movie from and every once in a while you might get a buffer if your internet's bad. But that buffer when you're playing a video game, that's a hitch. All of a sudden you're like shooting someone that's in front of you, and then 2 seconds passes, and then all of a sudden you're dead because you're like, what the hell happened? Type of scenario. So it'll be interesting, but exponentially it's going to go faster. And to go back to your point, I don't think even Microsoft cares about being first in the cloud gaming space either. I think they just want their hands in as many things as possible, rather than leading the pack of console or mobile, right. Or they just want as many outlets as possible to make money from. And for instance, someone said the other day in the chat from last week's show that no one wants to play AAA games on a cell phone. And I said, it doesn't matter about AAA games, right? There's 57 million people playing Call of Duty mobile. 57 million. Do you know what AAA game would die if they had 57 million people play on their television set? There's not very many of 57 concurrent million people playing a game, right? It's not happening. So that's the market they're in. They're trying to get the mobile space, the PC space, the cloud space, the console space, and they don't care about winning them. They just want to be a part of it and have their hands in all the areas so they can get microtransactions, monthly payments, whatever it is.
And this is where I said, I don't feel like I'm walking away from Xbox. I feel like Xbox is walking away from me because that's not the kind of gamer that I am. Like, I don't think you can say they're making a mistake or this is bad or this is terrible because it's subjective to the consumer. Because I think what you're saying is exactly right. There are people out there that game in a way that I don't. I would never play a game at length through my TV. I use, I use the cloud, the streaming feature on my PlayStation. I use it on my Xbox. I use it to like quickly test out a game, and then I download it and I play it installed natively because I'm not going to play and in that experience. There's just a teeny amount of latency. There's just enough where I say, I don't want to play that way. So that's why I said the other day, I'm not slamming them. I'm saying, listen, I have felt for a long time y'all were going to change your plan. And it seems more and more now you're dead set on becoming an ecosystem. You don't care about the Series X. They have emails from the FTC hearings where Phil Spencer literally says they're going to constrain console for cloud. Like they're sacrificing console for cloud. Jez Corden reported on this, and people are calling him a pony bot. People are calling me a pony for quoting Windows Central of all outlets. I was like, this man's telling you that they basically sacrificed the Series X for cloud. And now we got emails where they're like, no, we're going to constrain console for cloud. So when I saw this commercial, I said, here we go. They don't even see Starfield as a console mover. There was no console bundle. Right. There was no Starfield console. It's like, no, play it without you don't even need a console to play it. It's like, well, you just told me I don't need your console.
Right. Once a quarter, you're going to see Starfield's going to come and go, and the next one up might be Fable, and the next one up after that might be Avowed, and the next one up after that, whatever it is. It's not about games selling consoles anymore. And let's be honest, PlayStation is also investing highly into streaming service. They're testing it right now, right? 4K streaming, right? So if they could get away, even though they're not losing as much money off certain consoles now, they're still losing money, right? They're not making... So if you sell 100 million PlayStation 5s, fantastic. But if I could do the same sales and not sell consoles at all, how much more money is in my pocket where I don't have to dish out making all those money? Instead of making $25 off each console, now I can make more money off each subscription model, right? Off each game sale, off each, like, this is where all companies want to go. They don't want to put discs on a shelf in a store where they have to print out the discs, put it on a truck, buy the shelf space, ship them out everywhere. They don't want to do all that. They just want the digital download and put it out there, and the majority of the people were going to buy digital. We saw the flip in, 2017, 2018, where it went 80-20 and then 20-80, the opposite direction.
It's not that clean, though. Some markets are still holding very strongly to physical sales. That's why I think the next Nintendo's still going to do physical sales. Like, I don't think physical's gone that quickly yet.
Well, Nintendo's such a outlier.
I know,
do.
It's Nintendo. They do whatever the frick they want.
I just had an argument with someone the other day because they're like, well, PlayStation's beating everybody. I'm like, do you understand that Nintendo outsells everybody in software, right? Everyone can agree with this. Like, every first-party title, right? The top PlayStation title with the most single, like, sales is Horizon at 20 million, right? And that's 8th on the list of first-party titles on the Nintendo list. Okay, behind like Pokemon Sword and Shield or whatever, right? Every Nintendo game that comes out selling like 20 million copies, up to 55 million or 57 million copies of Mario Kart, right? Nobody holds a candle to software sales to Nintendo. This is why I call Nintendo Crazy Uncle Nintendo, because when everyone has to go left, they're like, we're going to go right. Everyone's making discs, they make smaller discs. Everyone's making digital stuff, they're like, we're going to make little cartridges, right? They do whatever they want because they have the clientele that's always going to buy whatever they have, which is Mario, which is Zelda, which is Metroid, which is Pokemon. They have them all.
Here's where what you're saying, though, I think it's totally fine to be the company who's right behind Nintendo in sales, though. I mean, good golly. Like, the sales, PlayStation sales are incredible. They're about to hit record fiscal gaming revenue when this fiscal year ends. They're on pace to surpass their best year ever. And
real quick, Mangrove, they didn't sell 30 million. That's combined from the PlayStation 4 and the resales plus Miles Morales, and it's 33 million, not 30 million.
Yeah, the Spider-Man franchise has hit that number, so you have to include both Spidey and Miles. Miles just was at the top of the charts for months at a time. It was crazy. So it did very well. But the point I was making is I'd be perfectly happy to be second fiddle to Nintendo.
Sure.
So Sony's doing fine. That's why I look at Xbox and say, what's wrong with third place, bro? Like, why didn't you guys try harder this generation? Where are the big games to even try to compete? Because I had a guy telling me, like, Starfield's going to chart top 3. I'm like, no, it's not. They've completely evolved their ecosystem. 20-something million people don't have to buy Starfield. Starfield's not going to be on the charts for sales. They're not using Starfield for that. They're using Starfield, as you say, like, push the ecosystem, push the Game Pass, push the cloud. That's why I say, you're walking away from me. That's not the kind of gamer that I am. Like, to a certain extent, until Nintendo drops the Nintendo Switch 2, I kind of look at Nintendo in the same way. It's like, you're not hitting me where I need to be hit. Like, okay, sure, Tears of the Kingdom was remarkable, but come on, baby, you got to give me 60 FPS. Give me something a little bit stronger. Like, these games aren't even that graphically demanding, you know? I'm looking at Super Mario Wonder, and I'm like, right, I want to play that with my kiddos, right? But I don't want to be playing some 30 FPS hitchy mess.
But if they can sell 127 million Switches,
they don't care.
At the 30 frames, why? If it's not broke, don't fix it.
And I think that's the key takeaway here. Everybody, this guy's an Xbox hater. I was told this week I despise Xbox. Somebody had the level of hubris to tell me they know what I feel. Like, that's always a remarkable thing to tell somebody. I don't despise Xbox. I just feel like y'all are evolving in a way that I don't really want to go with you. That's not what I'm looking for, because you started mentioning their other titles. And something I've been saying is Xbox cannot focus on power anymore. They're pushing ecosystem, they're pushing Game Pass, they're pushing the Series S, they're pushing, you don't need a console, right?
Right, they're pushing wherever you want to play.
What do you think that means for Avowed and Fable and Hellblade and all future Xbox titles? What are we going to get? Are we going to get games that push the next-gen envelope, or are we going to get games to push Game Pass in the ecosystem?
I've said it from the start that it's Game Pass in the ecosystem. It has nothing to do with pushing the envelope of making it 60 frames per second or whatever. They're trying to get they're trying to make a market. The market is the streaming service, right? They're trying to make that better. Hence why PlayStation's doing it. Hence why Microsoft's doing it. Hence why Google did it. Right? They're trying to. I mean, Amazon's doing it now with Luna, right? Streaming the game straight to your. This is the market. So how do you test it? Right? They're trying to make Game Pass the thing that I said this yesterday. When PlayStation players, when a game comes out, is the first thing out of your mouth, is it on PlayStation Plus? No, it's not. Right? If you're an Xbox person, it doesn't even matter if it's a first-party title game or not. You see a trailer come onto the screen, and you're like, is that going to be on Game Pass? Right? And then you're like, oh, it's not on Game Pass. And then you start doing research on it. But the first thing out of your mouth is that going to be on Game Pass? Right? And then people make the jokes, oh, no, it's a good game, so it's not going to be on Game Pass, right? Like that's the thing. So they don't care, right? Starfield is telling you straight up, this is the biggest game that Bethesda is putting out in their existence. It's an Xbox title. It's running at 30 frames per second, and it can run on a television set. Okay? Not even a system. It's going to be running on your television set or your cell phone or wherever, right? If you decide to play on your PC and you want to stream it from there, you want to play on the Xbox or your Steam Deck, whatever it is, that's exactly. They're trying to make what's the word I'm looking for? Xbox is just trying to train your son, your daughter, the younger generation to just look at it, right? Like, does anybody remember TiVo? Right?
TiVo. Yeah,
does anybody remember TiVo?
Yeah,
right?
that was the birth of
that
was the birth of DVR, recording your television shows.
Bring that up to your children and see what they say. They're like, what's that? It's gone in a blink of an eye, right? We loved it. We're like, oh my God, I don't have to record on a disc anymore, like on a tape anymore, right? You're taking that same tape and putting it in and recording over things over and over again, right? Like, that's gone, right? So the way TiVo was, where people are like, oh yeah, we're going to TiVo. Now people are like, oh, it's on Netflix. It's on Netflix. It's on Netflix. This is what Microsoft wants. It's on Game Pass. It's on Game Pass. It's on Game Pass. They're promoting Game Pass. That's the future of that. PlayStation in a couple of years will be the PlayStation Plus, because I do think PlayStation down the road to compete, because I think Amazon with Luna is going to get games right up in there day and date as well, right? And I think that PlayStation down the road, even though I don't agree with the business model, I like PlayStation's business model. Put something out 6 months, 8 months later, then put it on your streaming service. But I think they're going to have to change their streaming service down the road to compete with the rest of the guys once this evolves into a better.
I missed that. I was reading something in chat. Who's going to have to change their streaming? Oh, PlayStation.
I think PlayStation will have to bend the knee, because like Amazon will probably get games day and date, like play it here first type of thing, brand new game on Luna, right?
You think PlayStation's going to have to change their subservice to day and date?
I think down the road, I think within 3 years they might do it. I don't agree with it. I want them to. I like the model that they have, where it's like 6 months, 8 months, a year down the road, then put it on their service, because that's because you let the game breathe, you let it make its money, you let the population buy it new, used, and then they can rent it on the service.
The market leader doesn't have to follow the person in back. Like, I don't think they have to follow that trend. Correct. I don't think Microsoft will be a market leader with their ecosystem.
No, I don't think they will be a market leader, but I think the streaming aspect will be the market leader, not the particular company.
No, you're forgetting one thing that you just talked about a few moments ago. Nintendo. Like, I think Nintendo and PlayStation they're the levy. They're not going to allow that trend to become normal. They're too interwoven into the gaming world. You buy the games at full price. If Nintendo and PlayStation never give over to it, then it'll never ever be the majority. They're too big.
Nintendo already doing streaming stuff, right?
But they're not doing day and date.
No, they're not doing day and date, but they also don't have to, because of their first-party titles that they have. They don't need to. They're not doing third-party. Nintendo's built on first-party titles alone. That's it.
Oh, yeah, but what I'm saying is that no one will ever follow that market trend if it's always Microsoft or like Amazon. It would have to be PlayStation or Nintendo would have to take that shot first. If neither of them do day and date with their first-party stuff, no way. They're too big. 40 million PS5s in circulation, 2-1 to Xbox. Like, Sony's too strong, Nintendo's too strong in the market to give over to that. Like,
you're also looking at it, though, as just console base. You're looking at the console install base. There is no console in the future.
Right, but what you're arguing is, and this is where I think we're getting a little mixed up. If Game Pass ecosystem starts to appeal to that more casual gamer who games on their phone, their tablet, and their television, that will not affect what PlayStation and Nintendo do, because that's not who they sell to. They don't sell to that person. They don't sell to the person who wants to sit casually and play over the cloud on their TV. So the logic I'm connecting here is they're going to start appealing to different subsets of the market, and therefore they will never feel an impetus to do day and date on their titles, because it's like, we don't need to do what they're doing. Like, look at their games. Like, that, it's a bunch of shovelware and indies and stuff that they appeal to the casual gamer. That's not what Sony and Nintendo appeal to. These are like hobbyists, everywhere they go gamers. They want everything. I think Microsoft's path, as you say, is potentially massive. They can tap into a massive consumer base, but the gaming world's responding to, if we look at Baldur's Gate on PC and we look at the hardware sales of Nintendo and PlayStation, the gaming world's responding to something that's very different than what Microsoft's offering.
I agree. Sony's specifically for gamers, for the high end market, right? That's what they are. Nintendo is trying to get everybody else, and Nintendo is from birth to death, as I call it. When you're born, they hand you the Nintendo, and when you die, you turn it in, right? Because their player base is anywhere from like 3 to 99 or whatever it is, right? Where Xbox is trying to get that gap from like 3 to 10, 11-year-old type of thing, maybe even 13. But once you're like a teenager, most people that are in high school or middle school, they start talking to their friends. They want to be on the PlayStation. That's what they want to do, right? I'm saying technology is going to shift where there's not going to be consoles. They're all going to be streaming from their television. So I said last night, instead of having a PlayStation and an Xbox, you're going to have a Sony television in your house that has PlayStation on it, and you're going to have a Samsung that has Microsoft on it, right? And they're going to have their battles of what TV sets you have in your house now instead of actual boxes inside your house, because they're going to integrate it. Now, I'm not saying Xboxes and consoles go away completely. The record player's still around, right? You can still get a Blu-ray player. There's still going to be things that you can use, but the predominant, in my prediction, okay, and I've been wrong in the past, but I've also been more right than wrong, that in the future, there's just going to be streaming. And that streaming format is it's no longer what Microsoft or Amazon's doing. It's what the industry is doing. And the industry, if it's streaming to stay up to game with it, then that's what it's going to be.
I think the biggest barrier to that happening, I don't think that happens. I don't think that happens in our lifetime. I don't think we go away from hardware in our lifetime, because
I hope you're right.
Here's why I don't think so. I think the tech, so how do I want to phrase this? The tech that advances to make your computer and your console stronger will continue to advance markedly faster than the infrastructure can advance. Like, I don't think the internet infrastructure will be able to keep up. It's always going to be trying to say, like, let's say in 15 years, I think cloud will be so much better in 10 to 15 years. I think you'll be able to play and have an amazing experience through cloud. It won't be anything like what we do today. However, you also have to consider in 10 to 15 years, what will the strongest computer be capable of? What will the strongest gaming computer? What will the strongest console be capable of? And that's going to be another significant challenge for cloud. Cloud's going to be saying, oh gosh, like, infrastructure just caught up. And look at what they're doing now. Look at the lighting. Look at the textures. Look at the rendering. Look at what's AI and machine learning doing. Like, the processing power that you'll be consistently seeing just go up, 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 up in hardware. I think infrastructure is always going to lag behind. It's kind of like battery technology. We always push, well, look what the phone and the laptop can do. And the battery's like, oh, bro, we just caught up. What you talking about? Like, batteries are always lagging behind to power these devices for long periods of time, because we always want to make things bigger, stronger, better, more powerful. So that's why I think, from where I sit, having local, strong hardware in your home, I don't think that goes away in our lifetime, because of just the nature at how fast hardware advances. Infrastructure is just so woefully behind. Even the recent stuff we're hearing about Sony Cloud, it honestly looks like Sony might end up having better cloud infrastructure than Microsoft for cloud gaming, which is insane to say.
Yep. Chad, see, what I find funny is you guys think I'm crazy and call me Michael Packner or whatever you want to call me, okay? But literally 5 years ago, when I said that Microsoft is not caring about consoles, everyone just like you are right now, made fun of me, and yet I don't need to be like, I told you so. It's just what it is. It's just what the landscape is going to be. I used to work with cameras, and I used to work in the film industry, and I worked with 4K and 8K way before it was actually prominent in the actual world of television. Okay, now you can say I'm crazy, and you can disagree with me, and that's what's great about the conversations that we're having between me and Lono, and you guys can make fun. But I'm not talking 10, 15, 20 years. I'm talking 5. Exponentially, technology is moving faster and faster. Okay, just 2 months ago, I talked about how on my channel, I talked about how AI is going to change gaming, the landscape of gaming, and there's already modders that have made Skyrim where ChatGPT is already talking inside the thing, and now a new person made ChatGPT in Grand Theft Auto 5 where you can talk to them physically and they can answer you back, and it's all like a real conversation happening. So laugh away, make fun of me in the comments section all you want. We'll see who's right and who's wrong in 5 years.
Well, and in the realm of cloud gaming, I think I'm gonna end up doing a show on this next week, because it's like there's some interesting information coming out about what what Sony has been able to do, and it's like, oh, well, that's a huge jump, because I've had multiple people tell me, okay, that xCloud gaming is basically a Series S experience. It's a Series S profile, which is interesting because they're actually giving you Series X hardware, but you're going to get a Series S experience. And that's why some people are saying, like, that's how far behind cloud is. Like, you can't even give people the Series X experience. Now, again, I am relaying what I've been told. I'm not the expert on xCloud, but what people have told me, 2 different people that have researched this, they're my go-to tech guys, they're like, you're basically getting a Series S experience through xCloud. So the fact that PlayStation's already doing 4K cloud streaming of games with their beta audience, that's a huge jump for them in comparison.
No, technology's not here yet, Lono. Technology's not here yet. 4K is not here yet. It's not happening. It's not happening over streaming service. That it couldn't happen, right? 6 months ago, people have said the same thing, and now PlayStation's proving it 4K streaming. And then there's actually already services that are doing 4K streaming, but now just PlayStation's getting on board with them. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's coming. I don't think it supplants. That's always been my pushback. I don't think cloud gaming supplants hardware. No. I just don't think it's it's possible.
You can still get a vinyl record player, but that's not the majority of what's happening now, right? People just don't go out. Millions and millions of people are not going out buying record players with vinyls. But there's mom and pop stores where if you're a vinyl record collector or hobbyist, you're still collecting and playing it on your record player.
Well, the situation with Starfield's been interesting, too, because everybody was like, where's the marketing? Where's the marketing? There were people that were really upset about that. And I said, just wait. I said, it's going to heat up. I said, about halfway through August.
Week? Yeah.
Next week, there's a Q&A.
No, I'm saying last week we talked about how the advertisement was going to kick up. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, oh, it's going to kick up. Everybody settle down. Like, I was like, come on. They're gonna market the heck out of this game. It's Starfield, after all. I think the Samsung TV commercial is a blip on the radar. Like, I think the real stuff starts next week. There's a Q&A next week with the devs. They're going to be at Gamescom. Do you think they bring new stuff to Gamescom? Because last year they didn't. They just kind of brought the same video and showed it to people. There's a theater presentation of Starfield. Do you think they bring new stuff? Because I feel like, okay, they're going to heat up here. They're doing a Q&A. They're going to start dropping some new stuff. Do they bring a big banger to Gamescom? Because that's like right before the game comes out.
You mean like new screenshots or just the same video? Is that what you're asking? Like,
I mean new gameplay.
I don't think they do.
Okay.
I don't think they bring new stuff to Gamescom for public. Behind closed doors, they might see new stuff, but then we'll see the same stuff at Gamescom as we did for the June event. And I think because it's 1 week later, I think the guerrilla marketing then goes into effect with the content creators, the outlets. They start pushing stuff. It'll be interesting to see, though, if they're allowed to show us their content or if it's B-roll content. Like, oh, we got to play it, but we can't show you what we played because we don't want to ruin anything for you.
Yeah.
What, you know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. I don't think they show anything new. I just think they're just going to do the same package because 1 week, look, regardless if you buy it or not, people are going to try it out. right? So this month, once we look at the financials later down the road, you're going to see a big spike in Game Pass market for Microsoft that month that Starfield comes out, which is 1 week after Gamescom.
Yeah, Microsoft didn't predict a huge jump in this month on revenue, so I don't know if they're worried about, they've already got so much saturation of Game Pass, like maybe it's not going to have this big impact. So it'll be interesting to see if their predictions are wrong, and if like Starfield's tectonic and it blows up and crazy sales on Steam, because Microsoft's own prediction didn't seem to be like, oh yeah, gaming is going to get bumped by a whole bunch.
But you also have to remember they raised the price right before Starfield came out for regular Game Pass, for the Ultimate Game Pass, and then they also took half the deal off the dollar menu of it's 14 days now instead of 30 days.
Yeah, it's 14. Now, somebody in chat asked, do they have to show? Do they really need to? Vithar saying, do they need to show any more? And somebody's like, it'll just be the same stuff. Hear me out. I said this morning. We see more of a game now before it comes out than any time in the history of gaming. We have never seen this much before, ever. Like, we have 25 minutes of Starfield from just a few months ago, and before that, we had what was it, like how long was the thing? I think it ended up being like 10 or 15 minutes. I can't remember.
Yeah, like 7 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it was. Yeah.
So we have a Seinfeld episode worth of footage of a video game, like a sitcom's worth, like 30-something plus minutes of Starfield. And I'm like, I don't think they need to show any more. I do think they're in a bit of a precarious situation because of the delay. It kind of like staggered everything instead of jamming everything into like a nice, because Todd loves to have a nice short marketing window. It kind of got stretched a little bit, which I think made it feel like, where are they? Why aren't they talking? So I don't actually think they need to show anything new at Gamescom. I just think it would be very beneficial to, because it's like right on the doorstep of the game's launch. It would be a really, really good kick in the hype train.
Look, at least it's a lot better than the days when we were younger, right? You used to open up Nintendo Power. There was like 3 pictures of the new game you wanted, and that was all you got. You read like 2 paragraphs. You're like, man, I'm excited about that game. Now you get 22 minutes of an actual game and actual gameplay and see what the ins and outs are and the UI and how it works. And people are like, oh, I want to see more. I don't think they show more. I think they've shown enough, and I think that it's going to speak for itself, right? As soon as someone comes out and says it's amazing, or as soon as someone comes out and says it's terrible, that's it. That's going to set the tone for the rest of the month, right? It's either going to be can we curse for a second? Am I allowed to curse?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll keep it clean. It'll be like, is this going to be a crap? Is this all this crap that's going to come out afterwards of the hate, or is it going to be, oh, it's actually good? Well, good. It should be good when it came out, like type of thing. Because if it's good, you get like a Baldur's Gate where people are just hyped up about it. And if it's bad, you get a lot longevity more out of that because people talk crap about it. Fallout 76 was terrible, and people talked about it for like 8 months straight.
I do want to respond to some stuff in chat, okay? They're number one, Zuby, be careful with wasting your energy on that guy. His account's 2 months old. It's probably somebody on an alt. So I wouldn't waste a lot of time on that guy. I do have 2 people saying something that I think is fair pushback on. Should we see more? Do we deserve to see more? We've got All Things PlayStation saying we need raw gameplay of Starfield. I would like to see somebody playing this thing. I'm combining this with Slave to the System because he says it's all PC footage. I'll be honest. I would like to see somebody playing this on a Series X and just running a mission. Just let me see a mission. Let me see a mission flow. Let me see some, some shootouts, NPC interaction like that. I'm not saying I need to see that. I'm just saying I would like to see that because I do agree. If our biggest question mark about this game is its performance, and we've only seen PC gameplay, and that PC gameplay dropped into the 20s on frames per second, all these people that are like, oh, it'll be fine on PC. It'll be 60 FPS on PC. I'm like, are you sure about that?
Like Cyberpunk.
Right. Are you sure about that? Like, we've only seen PC gameplay up to now for an Xbox flagship title. And it can't even maintain 30 in the footage they showed us. Like, now maybe they were doing something to cap it at 30 because they know what console is going to deal with, and maybe that caused some issues. I don't know, but all I know
but
is the PC
simulating what it's going to be like on the console and playing on the console. That's two different things, right?
Well, I was kind of maybe trying to give him a pass on why it dropped into the 20s. Like, it didn't even maintain 30 frames per second in their own footage, and it was PC footage. So it's like, what on earth? There's a great chance that this thing is just, a performance bear. Sorry, all of you that like to play Baldur's Gate 3. They're all going to go play that now because I said the word bear. I'm worried it's going to be performance bear because I grant the point from those two gentlemen or those two people in chat that like we've only seen PC gameplay and we haven't seen raw gameplay. I
want them on a stage with an Xbox in front of them, Xbox Series X, and they walk up and they're like, "Here's the gameplay," and they walk up and they just unplug it just to show you it's running on it, and then they plug the HDMI cable back in, and they're like, "See, it's on the X. No hiding anything." That would be funny, but at the same time, at least they would be upfront about it and go, "Look, this is it's running on the X."
Because I plan on playing this on a PC, so it's like even in that realm, I'm kind of like, "Ooh."
Did you buy it early? Did you get the early access of it?
Where did I?
Isn't it 5 days early access for if you buy it, and if you don't buy it, then Game Pass is on the day on 6th?
Yeah, my brain locked up on me. Yes, I've done that on Steam. I've also I also pre-ordered the collector's edition because I thought that the little case and the watch was dope. I think this is going to be a historic game. I think it's going to be a historic moment for Bethesda. Even if it has issues with performance, I think, okay, this is definitely a game where I'm going to want some of that memorabilia to look back on and be like, hey, I was there when Starfield launched, because I do think it's going to be one of those games. Not necessarily as great as the Diablo candle that I have after everything that happened with Diablo. I was there.
I have a question. I have a question. Okay, so Starfield comes out, and let's say it's not a Fallout 76, right? It's not a Cyberpunk situation. It's not a Redfall situation, but it's also not a Baldur's Gate 3 edition. It's just like situation. It's there. It's not terrible. It's not fantastic. What happens then? Like, are more people going to be upset that it's just kind of mid tier, or are more people going to be like, yeah, it's fine. It's on Game Pass?
This gets tough because I'm so tired of the console tribalist. I really am. They're constantly trying to pull me into their fight and their categories, and it's just exhausting. It really, truly is. I had somebody try to call me out about my PlayStation trophy count, and I'm like, I've been telling you, mother effers. I started late on PlayStation. I have a 74,000 gamer score on Xbox. Like, go compare my profiles. Jiminy. So I don't want to give in to this tribalism, but I do think the debate about this game will be very tough to get an assessment, and the reason will be if anybody boots up this game and is critical of it, it will be viewed as you're bashing Xbox, right? And that's where we're going to need the PC guys' help here to be like, hey, come on, guys. You don't have a dog in this fight, this stupid console fight. Tell them how bad the game's running. That's what I try to do with Jedi Survivor. It's like, this has nothing to do with the consoles or the console's power. Like, oh, these consoles just aren't strong enough. No, the game runs bad on PC too. So I think that's going to be the challenge. Is this is going to be one of those games where you can't criticize it. You'll just get lumped in as, oh, you're just a pony. You're just hating on it. And it's like, no, I didn't do 50 episodes about Starfield and defend it and talk about how it could be game of the year. I didn't do all that to appear. That's what they always think, right? Like, you're just trying to appear neutral. No, I don't work in your world. Like, you're over there playing Monopoly. I'm over here playing soccer, and you're trying to apply the rules of Monopoly to soccer. It doesn't work. I'm not playing your stupid console fight. So I am going to be, I think, frustrated in the wake of Starfield that it won't be possible to be critical. It's like you either completely kiss the ring and say this is the greatest game. It's basically Jesus for Xbox, and if you don't do that, well, then you're just going to be labeled as a hater. Yeah.
I think. See, I don't look at it as because it's Microsoft. I look at it because of Bethesda, and Bethesda with Oblivion and Morrowind and Skyrim and Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 minus Fallout 76. Bethesda has put out regardless, they're Bethesda, right? I mean, even Cyberpunk, or not Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red with the Glitcher, as the people called it when Witcher 3 came out, right? They all have their problems, and we can look past it because there's more pros than cons. I think it's unjust because Fallout 76 was so bad, because it's not the same developers that made all the other games, right? It's Fallout 3, Fallout 4, and now Starfield and Skyrim are all made by the same studios, where Fallout 76 wasn't. It's made by Bethesda, but not the studio that made those other games. And those games have all been nominated, and some won in certain categories for Game of the Year. And to have Fallout 76 come out, and then all of a sudden now everyone just wants to hate on Starfield because it's like the cool thing to do. I feel like that's the way it is, right? Like, it's fun to hit on Starfield and anything that Microsoft has to do. And I think that's unfair for Bethesda, right? We always talk about the 16 times the detail. We always talk about all the keywords that Todd Howard says. I truly believe that the game is going to come out, and I think the story element of it is going to be good. Do I think it's going to be buggy? Yeah, I mean, the dragon flew backwards in Skyrim at certain points and stuff. You know, it still had its problems, but overall, the game was phenomenal, right? Skyrim was phenomenal. Fallout 3 was phenomenal.
Well, and I think the frustrations were echoed recently by Darth Microtransaction, DM, the guy that kind of blew up. He already had a channel doing Diablo Immortal, but his DM Diablo 4 channel just exploded.
Yeah.
And he made a video talking about, gaming's being ruined, and Asmongold reacts to it. And the idea that, like, you just can't have a conversation about games these days because it's like, the same crowd that defended Redfall. I got so much hate for saying Redfall looked bad. The same crowd that said Redfall was going to be amazing, Redfall was great, we played it and it was great. That same crowd was like saying that if Starfield got an 8 and not like a 9.5 or a 10, that like an 8 would be somebody giving it a low score intentionally. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're already preemptively setting the stage for, well, if you gave it an 8, you're a hater. It's like, what does that even mean? Why are you presuming that it already is a 9 out of 10? That's so weird to me. And the lack of self-awareness to be so drenched in bias that this game can't be an 8, that anybody giving it an 8, well, they're the ones that are biased. It's like, brother, you're wearing a straitjacket telling me I'm the crazy one. That doesn't make any sense. And this was from the outlet that gave Redfall a very good score. I think the highest score Redfall got came from the outlet that said this. I'm like, what are we even saying? Like, the game isn't out yet. Like, if it's not a 9, we're hating on it? I don't understand. I honestly think, listen, if I see Starfield get reviewed by, let's say, 10 different outlets all across the board, not just Xbox outlets, but everybody, and I see a bunch of 8s, I'm going to be really excited. I'm like, okay, that's a lot of outlets. This is a big game. 8 out of 10, that is a solid score for this game. Really, it is. I don't think it needs 9s and 10s. I think it's just too big to not encounter some of those areas and problems in the early days. I think it's going to be really tough for this game to hit a 9 or 10. And I think it's nice. It's because of the game size more than anything.
Yeah, I just think that, what do you think gets more criticism? What's going to get more criticism? Starfield or Grand Theft Auto 6? Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, those are two monumental games that are coming out for those studios. And I think Bethesda is like under this microscope of, if they screw up just one little bit, they're done, right? Where Rockstar, all they have to do is just say, hey, we're coming out. And everyone's going to be like, oh, I'm super excited about Grand Theft Auto 6. It's not comparable because they're both massive games, but yet they're treated unfairly because one's under a microscope because the game that came out before, Fallout 76, was an absolute disaster. Out of all their games they've created, that one blemish on the record of the studio is bad, where Rockstar has the definitive edition trilogy with a port is garbage, and now they just came out with Red Dead Redemption, the port for PlayStation, right? But they're not going to get screwed over or talked about like that. They're just going to be like, oh, I can't wait for Grand Theft Auto 6. But Bethesda, Starfield is crap from the start.
I agree with chat. GTA 6 is going to have the world watching, so it'll definitely need to be perfect,
just like Starfield.
It'll get shredded. Well, hang on. There's two things to say here about Bethesda. Number one, I do agree that in the past, we were more forgiving of Bethesda being Bugthesda because they were treading new ground. So Skyrim being glitchy or buggy was charming. You know, I was like, we've never played Skyrim was a pioneer game, okay? And then Fallout 4, again, I think because of the length and the size and the competing games at the time, I don't think it was as detrimental. It was more, haha, Bugthesda. I don't think we started this podcast talking Game of the Year. Look how many games. Look at the quality. Look at the... Oh, my gosh. That's the real challenge here, is people will say, I'm not going to play this buggy crap. Stuff's not working. I'm falling through planets. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but what I'm saying is if those types of bugs and those types of things show up, I don't think people's tolerance levels are where they used to be. I don't think people are like, oh, it's fine. They'll fix it later. They'll say, forget that. I'll go play something else. I got 8 games in my backlog that are all getting nominated potentially for awards. What, you think I'm going to sit here and play this buggy mess? That's going to be the posture of many gamers. I don't think the PC community especially, after Baldur's Gate 3, they're not going to be tolerant of a bad launch. Like, they had enough of them this year. I think they're going to be way less tolerant and patient with a charming little Bugthesda. I don't think so. Now, on the other hand, so I think that's one element of the discussion. The other element of the discussion is everybody who hates Xbox, they're going to take the smallest bug and make it look like Mount Everest.
Blow it out of proportion. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And they're going to do the same thing with Spider-Man 2. You know, the Puddlegate situation, like where Miles splashed out of the water and it didn't look that great. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's like that video got millions of views. And everyone's like, yep, Spider-Man's trash because of that. Because
of a puddle. Yeah.
Because of a puddle. And it's like the sheer irony of getting upset over a puddle in video. Like that, it's like the irony's lost on all of you tribalists. Like, you don't see it. It's like you guys are acting like fools out here. So I definitely think and I think that's the challenge with the conversation is if I as a commentator come to the table and say, here's 20 great things about Starfield, and then I say, here's 4 things that are bad. Do you want to know what's going to happen? The people that hate me, they'll clip the when I'm saying the bad stuff.
Of course.
Yeah. And they'll lump me in with the guy who's making a mountain out of a molehill over somebody's buggy eyeball or something.
Yeah, they'll put you in a compilation with them in a video. Yeah.
Yes, I get lumped in with the haters. So unless I literally say it's a flawless game, there's
then
nothing
you're licking the boot.
wrong.
Right, then you're licking the boot of Microsoft, and then you're a Microsoft. Yeah.
Then I'm a bootlicker shill. It's just like you can't win. There's the sensible middle ground has just eroded by people that just want to run to either side, dig a trench, and hurl grenades. It's like I'm out here in the middle saying, oh, man, I'm not looking forward to this game. I'm going to give it a fair shake, and both sides are making that really difficult.
Yeah, I look, I hope Starfield launches, and I really hope the marketing doesn't screw it up for them. Like, if, again, like I said earlier, as long as the skill up comes out and it's like, yeah, here's my footage and this is my time in the game, and other people come out, then that's looking good, right? Because even if it's bad, at least they let them use their footage. But if they come out and they're like, yeah, we couldn't capture anything, these is just B-roll footage, then you're like, okay, something else is going on behind the scenes, and it can't be because they don't want you to leak something, because there's other companies out there that are like, yeah, I just can't show you this particular footage because I don't want you to ruin the game, but I can show you my footage that I captured.
Well, this is so related to the next subject because Redfall has received no substantive updates. It has received nothing in the way of its 60 FPS update. There's paid-for content that's apparently on the way, allegedly. Arcane said this was going to be the most supported post-launch game in their... I couldn't finish the sentence. I couldn't finish. Why'd you laugh? Why'd you laugh? Yeah. It's going to be the most supported post-launch game. And on the subject of Starfield, it's like I said, the fire and brimstone's not there for Redfall because it's a Game Pass game. So the lion's share of the people that played Redfall and just kind of walked away and said, it sucks. It's like, well, it was a Game Pass game. Now, all the people on Steam got refunds. There's no way. This was like the #1 pre-ordered game the day before it launched. It has 1,700 reviews on Steam and like a 31%. So I'm imagining that they got a lot of refunds on Steam. Probably the most refunded game this year, I would think. So, what is your take on this? What needs to happen? Because there are people that are like, why won't you talk to us? People paid for content, and we don't know if we're going to get it. People paid for the Bite Back edition. They're owed 2 extra characters.
Yeah, obligation pass. Yeah.
So do you think that they should do anything with Redfall? I had a very different position. What's your position here? Like, do they make good on this? Do they buckle down and fix it, or do they move on? Like, where do you land with Redfall?
Well, one, they have to make good, right? They have an obligation for the people. I don't know how many. It could have been one guy that bought the extra edition. Okay, but they owe that one guy either a refund or an obligation to that DLC that they promised, right, for pre-orders. This should teach everyone a good lesson. Don't pre-order stuff. Okay, don't pre-order. I almost said the other thing.
That was so close. That was so good. Yeah, that was such a good catch.
There's no reason to pre-order stuff like this, right? Because especially like a season pass early on, because it's an obligation, and the only way they buckle down and get that obligation out is if so many people bought it, and I don't think that many. I don't think they hit that threshold, right? Another reason I don't think we heard anything from Redfall because it was such a disaster. Okay, it's part of Bethesda. It's part of that whole organization. Or it's Arcane Studios, but it's part of the ZeniMax Bethesda world. Well, there are big games coming out. They don't want anything to disrupt the Starfield train that's happening right now. Once Starfield comes out, I think they come out with a post and say, hey, we got our content coming out, blah, 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 because if Redfall's DLC is announced and maybe comes out before the launch next month and something's wrong with Redfall, they'll be like, you still haven't fixed this. They're going to take that energy and push it over to Starfield, right? So if you don't have anything nice to say, they just stay quiet until after Starfield comes out. And that's what I truly believe, because everything's connected. Even though it's not the same company, even though it's not the same like developers, it's part of the organization. And if it comes out and it has any kind of, they would rather people talk crap about it and say, well, they still haven't updated, they still haven't done any fixes. They're just going to stay quiet until after Starfield launches, and then they'll rectify whatever they have to do there.
Well, I took an interesting position on this that, to me, I think people were maybe kind of surprised that this was what I said. I think they should abandon the game entirely. I think they
just straight up just hand out refunds.
Yeah,
rain checks for people.
Exactly. I think you refund everybody who got the Bite Back edition.
Here's 1 month free of Game Pass.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you do this after. Starfield releases, so that nobody really talks about it.
Exactly, just after Starfield.
Because the developers wanted this game to be canceled, they didn't want to make it. So, what are we getting if we basically strong-arm them into making some characters or trying to add 60 FPS? Like, why waste their time and hours by doing that? There's no ROI here. There's no money. There's no way you get anything back on this, because the article I read was like, well, Hello Games buckled down and got No Man's Sky, into a better place. I'm like, Hello Games did a bunch of additive stuff that they had promised in the game that got lost in their the office flood. This game doesn't need additive content. It just needs to not exist. Like, it's so bad at its core. So really quickly, my wife ordered me lunch and it's on the porch. I'm going to quickly go grab it. I want you to interact with this idea, because people said, well, if they do that, confidence in Arcane Austin will be so damaged. And I said, I think you do the same thing by trying to update the game and add content, and it's just really drawing more attention to how crappy the game was. Either scenario is damaging confidence. Let's just move on, shall we? Interact with that really quickly. I'll be right back.
Yeah, so the question that Lono just said, I think he's 100% correct. Like, do you keep molding the crap out of this game to try to force feed it into making people like the game, or do you just abandon it completely? And I think that's the correct answer. I think you completely abandon the game and move on, because we all know if it clucks like a chicken and acts like a chicken, I want to put a different analogy there, but I don't want to curse on Lono's channel. But if it looks bad, then stop trying to make it look good, right? It is what it is. So the obligation pass, though, that's what they have, and a lot of companies do this with their passes that you buy pre-order, and they come with new characters, new weapons, new maps, whatever it is. Like, just stop. They know how many they know how many they sold. They know how many people are still playing. They have all this data. It's probably not worth their time to do that. It's not worth their time to even put any more effort into making the game. I shouldn't even say make the game better. Make the game, right? The very beginning, we talked about games coming out in early access and whatnot. That's what Redfall was. It was literally scrapped, repackaged together, and it was an early access game they launched. None of this would have happened if they didn't charge $70 and they just said preview program. That's all they had to do. Preview program, just like Obsidian did with Grounded, and everyone would be like, oh man, this game's got a good potential in a couple of years. But instead they were like, we're going to get $70 for this. And what did they pay? 120 was it?
For Bite Back, it was 100.
Oh, it was 100 for that. Like that's ridiculous. That to me is the worst thing that Microsoft did, was try to get $120 for this game, let alone 70.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I landed, where it's like, listen, I understand the people who bought the game for 70, right? They're not really my concern, because I think that there was plenty of signs pointing to the game being garbage.
Sure.
Take it up with all the Xbox guys that told you it was going to be great after the capture event. Like, they're kind of the ones you should be frustrated with, because they broke trust, right? They got you convinced, oh, this game's going to be great. So if you bought the game off their recommendation, I'd be more furious with them, because if you just looked at the gameplay without their commentary on your own, I think people would have really come to the decision that, like, I'm not buying this game for $70. I didn't see anything in the gameplay previews that was worth $70. But
did you play a game called Generation Zero?
Generation Zero, why do I know that name? Is that like an open world kind of post-apocalyptic game?
Yeah, it's a post-apocalyptic where robots take over or whatever.
Yes,
right?
yes, I have played that.
That game has done a better job than what Redfall's done. Okay, it's a good game, right? It's not a great game, but my point is that they did a better Redfall than Redfall did, right? Instead of vampires, it's robots taking in the world, and you're going around trying to scavenge for stuff and do things. And it's so sad what Redfall and what Arcane has done with that game. And I think Creature's correct. Like, just take it off Game Pass, because it's that bad mark on Game Pass from other things. Like, this game is just not done. It shouldn't be out.
They didn't even, when you went to your console, the coming soon to Game Pass section, it wasn't even listed there.
It wasn't listed, yeah.
It was like, it wasn't even listed. And then the day it showed up, it took like half a day to show up. It was like, it's not there. And then they posted that image. They're like, oh, here's the games this month on Game Pass. And I was like, it's not even here. And then people like corrected me. I got a community note on Twitter because of this, because they said, oh, these are the games coming. And I was like, no, go back and look at Hi-Fi Rush. They put Hi-Fi Rush on that image because they were saying these are all the games this month, and they didn't do that with Redfall. It's like, they knew, don't put this game out front and center with the rest of the games. Don't put it on coming soon to Game Pass. Like, even Microsoft knew, this game ain't it. And if, like I told people the other day, if the devs wanted this game canceled, then why would we sit here and beg them or browbeat them into continuing to support it? It's like, if they wanted it canceled, then okay, I agree with you. Just cancel the dadgum thing. Shut the whole thing down. Refund people for Bite Back and move on. Like, ZeniMax and Arcane leadership are to blame. Don't make the devs keep supporting this pile of crap like that. And so, outside of refunds, I don't think they have to do much else to the consumer, in my mind. It's like, if y'all bought this game after seeing everything, that's kind of on you, because it was clearly not a game worth paying full price for. It didn't have much to offer, and the gameplay looked pretty subpar from the beginning. It looked bad.
Yeah, bad consumers are everywhere. You know what I mean? Some people do a lot of research and stuff. Other people just blindly pay for stuff because they get hyped. So
I say this one for last because I wasn't sure if we were going to have time for it, but I did want to commentate on this one because I actually supported this decision. I went and watched the Obsidian documentary. It came out this week that Avowed was going to be a co-op game, and they reversed that course, and they said, nope, we're going to be a single-player game. Did you see their reasoning for this and why they did it? Did you see the documentary?
I read the article that said that they wanted it to be co-op because it was more sellable to publishers. Is that why they originally did it, or was there more to that? They
were shopping it, and at the time they knew multiplayer was like a buzzword.
Yeah.
shopping to publishers. But as they started building the quest lines, pipelines, and the game itself, they were like, this is not our wheelhouse. We're not good at this.
Sounds like a Redfall production.
That's where I landed on it. I said, this is so analogous to Redfall. Like, just yesterday when I reported on Redfall, it was the 100th day since Redfall came out. And Broken Lobo says, what about Pride? You're taking the pragmatic approach, and I respect it. I think you have to take...
Pride. They lost Pride when they've launched that game unfinished and broke.
Well, I kind of want to quote Ving Rhames from Pulp Fiction and say, F Pride. Pride only hurts. Like Pride only hurts. You know, you're going to feel a little sting, but, you know, you got to go down in that round. You got to say, no, we're no longer doing this. So I think that's the right approach. I think it's better. I argued it was better for everybody. It's better for the consumer. It's better for Arcane. It's better for Xbox. Put this thing to bed. Take it behind the woodshed. Tell it to look at the pretty flowers and just get rid of Redfall. It's just why? Why leave it? Why leave it on the table? Why leave it attached to your brand and Game Pass?
Yep.
When it comes to Avowed, I celebrated their decision. I said, that's exactly what you should do. If you're building a game and you're like, we're not good at this, we're inexperienced, this isn't going to be the right course of action, then cut it. Now, people are trying to run with this as a negative headline of like, yep, here we go again, Xbox cutting features. There was seemingly a big art style change is how they're booking it, but it's more, to me, a graphical downgrade. Do you think there is an overarching concerning narrative here that, like, they didn't just gut co-op, they downgraded the graphics, it doesn't really look like a next-gen game, it looks kind of like if Sea of Thieves got a bit of an uptick in detail, you know, it's like a updated, remastered Sea of Thieves. Where do you land with Avowed? Because, like, this is, again, another game where I'm like, they're just not trying to focus on next-gen power. This looks like a fun game. I think it looks fun, but, you know,
Look, Obsidian makes good games, right? So their track record for all the games they've done, even the preview program with Grounded, right? And then Outer Worlds and Outer Worlds 2 that they're making. They've made, I went through their catalog of games the other day. There's more pros than cons of popular games that Obsidian's made. So their choice of making Avowed and then changing the graphical aspect. I don't think the graphics look bad. I do see the change from the original trailer they showed to what they're showing now. And maybe they are being more transparent as far as maybe that's not footage that was running on a PC and it was running on the Xbox X or Series X or whatever, right? And that's what they need to do to make it run really well. Now, is that a deal breaker? You know what I mean? Is that a deal breaker because the graphics don't look as high intense as it was when they first showed the game? For me, not particularly, because an art style of what they choose for the game is not a big deal to me. It's, does the controls feel good? Does the gameplay feel good? Like everything else of that game, it could look like Minecraft, you know what I mean? And play like a Baldur's Gate, and it would feel phenomenal. It doesn't matter what the visuals look. I just saw that new Turtles movie. I don't like the art style of it, right? But while you're watching the movie, you kind of forget about what the art style looks like, and you just kind of watch the movie for what it is. So I think that's the same thing with Avowed's like art style. You're right; it does look like Sea of Thieves a little bit, upgraded, I guess, Sea of Thieves. But I think Obsidian makes great enough story-based games that I think you'll look past that when it comes out. But I do agree with you. I do agree that they lowered the art style or changed the art style because of the Series S, because of what Xbox is doing. I do believe they did something along those lines.
Oh, yeah, that's the whole thing. Because that's the concern then, is we're seeing a lot of titles get delays. We're hearing all of the rumors about like internal reboots, internal resets, creative directors leaving. You know, the Perfect Dark had a creative director, then a director, then a bunch of staff leave, and they completely rebooted it. And when I look at that ecosystem, that just continues to be the concern. Is you have all of your developers now, they have to go and pay homage and bend down and make sure everything's good to go for Series S. And we started this show with Baldur's Gate 3, and buddy, that one stings. The top game of this year can't land on Xbox because of the Series S. There's no way. Yeah, this year.
Right. Yeah. Can't the best game of the year can't land on this year for Xbox. Yeah.
And I think that just there's no console tribalism in that. That's just an observation of the market. It's like when the biggest game of the year is going to land on PC, then PlayStation, and can't land on Xbox because of a hardware decision that Xbox made. I don't know how you look at that as a consumer and just brush this one off. This is a giant problem that's not going away anytime soon.
It's also because of their policy, though, right? They don't want to put something out unless it's coming out on the S and X at the same time. I think easily Microsoft could be like, yeah, never mind. You know what? We're going to give it to the Series X right now when it comes out for PlayStation 5 next month, right? They should drop it on the X, but they don't want to. They're fundamentally like, no, we don't want it to leave until it works on both systems. And I think that's what's hurting them, right? Sure, the S is a lower grade system, but at least treat it like one. Don't pretend that it's like this powerful system that it's running with the big boys, where Xbox Series X should be. Personally, I have an X. You have an X. I think people that bought the X, because we're not getting the 60 frames per second, we're not getting that extra high fidelity stuff that they promised us. We should at least get games when they're supposed to come out on time, not hampered by the Series S. Like, they could release it for the X and then release it for the S down the road, but they don't want to do that.
I think there's two outcomes here. I think it releases next year without split screen. I think that
would even hurt more.
I think that's the most likely outcome, by the way. Or they release it next year and Series X gets split screen and Series S doesn't. Because you're going to get to a point where, where's the game? Are we going to get it or not? Like Xbox users have a right. Imagine watching the Game Awards in December of this year and watching Baldur's Gate stomp all over the world and then being like, when do we get that game? When do we get a turn? Right. And if you're a Series X owner, that's just absolute insult to injury. It's like, I could play that game right now, bro. Like, what in the world? Imagine saving your pennies and watching those commercials. And I think the dilemma with, if they ever try to have some kind of a conversation about like, well, the Series S just can't do all these things. I mean, listen, they can unlist the Series S video on their YouTube channel all they want. They promised a box that would to be able to do everything the X could do, just at a lower resolution. And that is fundamentally not true. And like when I look at Avowed dropping co-op and I think, oh, that's not a big deal. They made this internal decision. That's not what they're good at. But then when I look at the graphics, and then I look at Baldur's Gate 3, and then I look at all these other titles that are just big unknowns right now because people keep trying to strut Fable around, and it's like, we have no idea if the game is going to look that good. That was all rendered. That was all cinematic. That was all in-engine. That was not raw on an Xbox running video game. And if you can't even show Starfield, you got to show Starfield on a PC, like, this is where we are going forward. Because I remember Phil said they needed more transparency and they needed to start letting us know when we were seeing something run on an Xbox and not a PC. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to show games off on the Series S? That's the console you've sold more of.
Did you read the article where Microsoft is actually sending people to Lorien Studios to help them try to figure out the split screen?
Yeah.
That to me, Xbox or Microsoft, Phil Spencer should literally open up his eyes and change his stance on releasing S and X at the exact same time. Because there's no problems with the split screen on X. There's a problem with the split screen on S. And as someone's saying in chat, the fan base would lose their mind if they were missing a feature. But what you're saying is, if we come there next year and Baldur's Gate releases and the split screen's not on S, and they're like, we couldn't get it to work, and it's just not there, and they released on the X and not the S, then why even wait now? Just put it on the X, because at least the motivation would be like, hey, if I really want to play Baldur's Gate, I can go buy a Series X and then play the game. But I don't think Microsoft really wants any more X's out in the wild.
They don't.
I think they want the S's as much as possible because they want you in the ecosystem with no disk drive, and they want you paying for Game Pass. That's what they want. They want the Game Pass system out there and the digital stuff. They don't want you to have the X where you can go to a third party, GameStop, secondhand store, mom and pop shop, where you can buy a disc and put it in, because that's less money in their pockets.
which leads to a real big question that everybody keeps asking. Is Microsoft done in hardware? Because if you saturate the market this generation with the Series S, what would your next console even look like? What are you going to make? What are you going to sell to people? You got people into your ecosystem with a $300 bottlenecked box. What are you going to sell them on? There's no way they have a mid-gen refresh planned, because who's going to buy it? Like, no. Your primary user base is buying Series S's. Now they can buy it with a larger hard drive. Like, what would your next box even look like? Because people are like, oh, well, they're working on a new box. So, it'll be out, 2028 to compete with the PS6. And it's like, okay, what's that box going to look like? How are you going to sell to a market that you got buy-in at low entrance cost gaming, a $300 box in Game Pass? What kind of hardware are you going to sell them in 2028? What's that even going to look like?
This goes back to my conversation earlier, where people think I'm making fun of it, where I really truly believe that Keystone, that Phil Spencer, they said they couldn't get the price point low enough, right, to send it out there, right? They want that thing low enough because they don't want to sell, because every time they sell one of those boxes, whenever that comes out, if it's 2 years from now, 3 years from now, every time they sell one of those boxes, that's more money in their pocket, because it's less production costs for that box, right? Then everyone that buys that is going to be playing streaming games, whatever, on whatever television you want. If it's an LG, if it's a Samsung, if it's a Sony, you're plugging into your television and you're going to be streaming games from their service, playing Game Pass, right? And then if it's not on Game Pass, it's from the Microsoft Store, and you're going to pay for the Microsoft Store. That's their game plan. That's what they're trying to do. It's not about power, and this is why I think the games are not coming out with these 60 frames and all this other stuff. They're trying to make the system and the games that run on what their future plans are, and I think their future plans is streaming. I think that's what it is.
Well, if that's the route they take, I think it'll be really interesting to watch sort of the public narrative shift, because the narrative this gen, it shifted from, well, the Xbox Series S is going to be stronger than the PS5. Yes, people said that. There were people that looked at all of the marketing and all the architecture bragging, and they said, oh, the Series S is actually going to be stronger than the PS5. It's going to blow the PS5 out of the water. And ironically, the Series S is pulling Xbox under the water. So that narrative had to change. I like on the Kind of Funny Xcast, Destin says, well, the way to get this to work is cloud. Just throw it on the cloud. And then he says in the next breath very quickly, they're just going to have to leave the S behind eventually. I'm like, what do you mean? We're 3 years into this gen, and they just doubled down on it with a larger hard drive. Yeah. How do you leave the S behind? That's the console. You're talking about, we got to leave behind the S eventually. How? It's the console. That's the console that for this generation for Xbox. How do you leave it behind?
Yeah, maybe they do a Hail Mary and make a diskless Series X, like down the road, like year 5 maybe, and then try to get people to buy that for the tail end. I mean, I don't know, but you're still hampered by the S. Regardless of whatever systems for this lifespan you come out with, you're still hampered by the S, unless they do some trade-in program. You know what I mean? Where they're like, hey, trade in your S and get the X and get those S's out of the cycle. But you're stuck. The S is the higher rated system in this Microsoft system for this console cycle. And no matter what upgrade they do, you're still hampered by the Series S.
Well, and now that it's trending, there was a thread on Reddit trending, and on Twitter, people were promoting the fact that you can trade in your Series X for a PS5 for like nothing. And it's like, the reason that's trending is people are doing that. Of course. So now you're going to have people exiting the Xbox ecosystem. They're like, well, I bought my Series X for nothing, so I'm out of here.
If you're a pro member, I think it's $15 out of pocket or something like that with the trade-in. Yeah.
Jiminy Christmas. I mean, I would love to have a third PS5, and I'll be honest, it's so tempting for me to do that. It's like, I have a PC. Like, the only reason I would keep my Xbox is because of my kiddos. Like, that's the only reason I'm keeping it. If I did not have kids, I would be taking that thing. I'd be getting a third PS5 so I could just keep one in my studio all the time, and then the 2 in the living room, and it'd be a done deal. I wouldn't even have an Xbox in the home right now.
So my situation now is that if they came out with let's say we're done with this console cycle, it's 2027, 2028, I'm not buying an Xbox next. I'm not. They burned me on the Series X. They told me it was going to be a certain thing. I'm in now, and that's what it is. I'm with the system now, but in 2028, when they come out with a new system, the Xbox Mega X, whatever they want to call it, okay, Like, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it day one. I'm not buying it year one. I'm not buying it year two, because at that point, in my head, they're going to be pushing more of this streaming service anyway. And why do I need a console? Why do I need a PlayStation 5 when a year after a game comes out, they're putting it on PC ports anyway, right? Why do I need a PlayStation 5? Why do I need an Xbox? I don't. I'd rather just game on PC. I used to be a PC gamer all the time, but it was more convenient to go to console. But now the way console's going with the streaming and all that stuff, that I might just go back to just playing PC games again.
Well, I don't agree with it. I've seen a lot of PC guys claim that about the PS5, and they're always very sweeping and a lot of times misleading. You can't just get a PC and be like, yeah, I can play all the PlayStation stuff like a year later. Really? Can you play Ghost of Tsushima? Can you play Ragnarok right now? Can you play Forbidden West?
No, if you want
the
games day one, yeah, you're gonna need a PlayStation 5. But if you're a person that doesn't care,
but it's not even about waiting 12. But it's not even about waiting 12 months. It's an unknown. You might wait for forever. It may never come. It may never happen at all. Like, or if it does happen, a year, 2 years, however long. And it's like, and this is where I started telling people, I was like, if you can buy a PS5 Pro for like $550 or $600, and it's able to run PlayStation games at a higher level than PS5 right now, brother, that's so cheap in comparison to the kind of rig that you'd have to build. Like, you got to build a pretty strong PC to be running to really, really high level games like the PlayStation 5 games. You got to build a pretty strong PC. You got to spend more money. And obviously, if you want the open platform of Steam and all that, and you like the fact that you can, sure, adjust and upgrade your hardware, sure. But it's like, this is such a bargain for me. It's like, I can play these games right away.
But at the same time, if I'm going to build a rig, and then I all of a sudden, instead of building a rig, I paid $500 for Xbox, Series X, and then I paid another $500 for a place. That's $1,000 I could have thrown towards a PC. You know what I mean? Like, so looking at different ways, time is time. I'm 45, and I don't have as much time to play video games as I did when I was 25. So I don't need an X, a PlayStation 5, and a PC. I mean, yeah, I like playing games, but when it comes down to it, I'm like, do I really want to pay $500 for a PlayStation and then pay for PlayStation Plus? Do I really want to pay $500 for Xbox Series X and then pay a monthly fee for a Game Pass, right? Or take that money that I'm putting towards those streaming services on those consoles, and then take the money that I spent on the consoles and just buy a nice PC?
I could see, especially with the rumors about the Switch 2 coming, I could see the ideal setup being a really nice PC, a PS5 Pro, and a Switch, the Switch 2. And you can literally play anything that comes out as soon as it comes out. You don't have to wait. And when you're playing stuff on PC, it's running, it's running incredibly well. You get the open, you get the open platform. And I know Alex reacted to what I said, because I was a little out of date in what I said. I was going off of like when the PS5 first came out. You can certainly build a rig that is stronger than a PS5 for $1,100. Okay, that's what he showed. And I said, okay, well, for $1,100, I can get a PS5 and a PSVR 2, and I get what, in my opinion, is a great gaming experience and a great gaming library. And yes, Steam being open, not having to pay to play on multiplayer games, being able to upgrade my hardware later, those are all great benefits to building the PC. The point that I've always made in this is it just comes down to what you value. You want to spend $1,100 on that PC that he put together in that video, man, you go. If that's what you want, if that's what you value, man, you do it. You do you, boo-boo. I'm looking at $1,100 on a PS5 and a PSVR 2 and being like, buddy, those are the games I like. I've completely sold on some of these VR games. They're an absolute blast. Like, I wish I had time to play Synapse more than I can. It just comes down to what you value. And in this discussion of value, I'm looking at the Xbox, and it's really hard to justify it. It's like, what? Why? Why would you buy a Series X? Like, I kind of feel bad. I told one of my buddies to get one because of Game Pass, and he has kids. But now I'm sitting here thinking, oh, man, I should have told him to get a PS5, because it's like, outside of Game Pass, there's all these things coming that he's not going to be able to do. He's not going to be able to experience because they're turning into an ecosystem, and he could have just done that through his television.
Well, if you're a person that wants to keep up with the Joneses and you want the games day one when they come out, then obviously that's not a choice. I personally don't care if I get the game day one, month one, year one. Time is time. I only have a certain amount of time to play certain games. So again, each their own. But again, it's looking less likely for me to get a console in the future because of just the way it is.
It's weird that that's happening to a lot of people. You're not the first person to tell me that they feel like they're reverting back to, like, I'm just going to do a PC. Like, you're not the first person to tell me that I'm saying that kind of. I'm saying, well, I'll just buy an amazing PC and I don't need an Xbox. Like, I'm almost there. There are other people that are saying what you're saying. They're almost reverting back to a PC gamer. They're like, this is all this evolution and all this stuff, the Game Pass and ecosystem and this and that and third. Just give me a PC. So I think that, the PC boys probably love hearing that because, they like to kind of knock on the console peasants. So seeing folks come back to PC.
Move over, PC players. I'm coming over.
I'm coming back. I just got so tired of it back in the day. I'm old man. Listen, I've told people this many, many times. I am casual dad gamer. I don't care. Like, I'm just casual dad gamer, man. I turn my PlayStation on and I play Final Fantasy 16 for about an hour. I had a great time. I shut it off. Like, that's how I game now. I'm not worried about your frame count. If I can get 60, I don't care. Give me 60, I don't care. That's why Final Fantasy 16 frustrates me, because I want that performance mode patch. I can't stand the exploration not being 60. But I look at PC gaming, and the only reason I'm coming back is for Starfield. That's the honest to God's truth. It's like, I'm not coming back to PC gaming because I want to mess with hardware and count my frames per second.
Right. You just want to turn it on and play. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even like messing with settings. When I booted up Quake 2 on my PlayStation 5 and motion blur was turned off, I felt like I heard angels singing. I was like, these guys get it. They get it. The motion blur. Motion blur's off by default. Now, motion controls was on by default, which was tripping me out. I'm like, why is my head bobbing all over the place? They had motion controls on by default, so I had to go turn that off. I was like, who wants to play Quake 2 with motion controls? But they had motion blur off, so I was a little bit more forgiving. Now, guys, you went crazy today with members again, so if you got a gifted member, don't forget to miss tonight. Special stream with my wife playing the Don't Stop Talking or We Explode game where I'm wearing a VR and she's talking me through how to dismantle a bomb. So that's tonight for all members. We're going to get ready to go to a VIP stream where only VIPs can come. So consider upgrading. You can use the upgrade command or the members tab to increase your membership. While I'm getting all that ready, Mike's going to tell you where you can find his content and what kind of content you can find when you get there.
You can find me at 30NSG Monday through Thursday from 10 o'clock in the morning till noon Eastern. I have a segment. I just read the news. We take about 3 stories. And I have the whole show is based off of you and me, the viewers. So I go back and forth. I read the news stories and we go back and forth. It's a good time. That's Monday through Thursday from 10 o'clock in the morning till noon Eastern. And then we also play games Monday through Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern to about midnight. I'm playing back through the old Transformers games. I'm playing Transformers War of Cybertron. Next week, I'm starting Fall of Cybertron, leading up to Gamescom, because I'm hoping to hear some information about Transformers Reactivate. And then Thursday nights, we do a podcast called Generation X Gaming, a weekly podcast that goes over a few of the top stories from the past week, and we rant along the way. So come on by. All my content's just conversation-driven. So see you guys there.
And if you guys enjoyed this show, do me a favor. We don't really harp on likes in this talk show because we're busy having a conversation. We really would love to see 300 likes on this video. This video could do great over the weekend. It's just such a great recap of the week's news. It really makes it easier on me. Booking 2 shows on Fridays is really tough. So this morning we did the preview breakdown of Lords of the Fallen, and getting just to hang out with my buddy and talk about the week's gaming news is just such a treat. And now we're going to go over to this VIP stream. This, again, is something you can upgrade to. If you're not a VIP or higher, consider at least doing Member Plus. You'll get to come to one of these a month, not today. But tonight, would love to see it tonight in about 6 hours, your time. If you do that, you can watch my wife and I hang out. We have some drinks. We spend most of the evening talking to you, and then we end the night with a game. So I'll get a couple drinks in, and then I'm going to try to dismantle bombs on VR while my wife walks me through it. I'm sure it's going to be great.
I'm sure that's going to be great. Yeah, it's going to
be perfect.
What could go wrong?
We did fix the PSVR 2 issue I was having last week. I got this little infrared projector that solved my issue. So, I owe you guys 5 gifteds. You guys just came in at the buzzer and hit 375. Hang on just a second. Stonespire and Butters are deciding to do some buzzer beaters here. Let's get some more people in as members that could come tonight, or they could upgrade right now to VIP and come with us. I'm gonna make good. You guys hit 375 today. It's absolutely insane. You guys did hit 4K, so the stupid Jar Jar stream's gonna happen. I'll have to get a Jar Jar outfit for that. Yeah, Mike can't wait for that one. We both love Jar Jar so much.
I hate Jar Jar so much. So I hate you
Oh,
because
no.
you're going to be Jar Jar.
Oh, no. I'm getting a spinner on my gifteds that I owe you guys. YouTube might be having a bit of an issue. Nope, there it goes. Okay, that was just a teeny bit delayed. YouTube chat has had some issues lately. I'm going to spam the link in chat, and then we're going to redirect to the VIP stream. So again, if you want to upgrade, it's a huge help to me and the channel. If you can't, smash like on the way out. Go watch the stream from this morning and leave a comment if not. And you can use the link in chat or ride redirect. Thanks so much for being a VIP. This is a weekly VIP unfiltered stream where I hang out with my producer, Creature, and 30 joins me. And we had a huge day, huge week. So the Jar Jar stream's happening. There's a special stream tonight where we're going to be doing the dismantling of the bomb and the VR with my wife. It's going to be hilarious. So make sure you're good to go with that. Thank you guys so much for being a VIP or higher. Thank you so much for a stellar day of members. I'm going to end the previous stream. If you guys haven't seen it yet, we've been doing a new thing. We've been doing a new thing called the Reforge Recaps, where we end the week and just kind of recap the news. It makes for a really great time and a really great conversation. So I'm going to end that stream and redirect folks over that are a VIP or higher, and then I'll make a post as well.